Chapter 1753. Chinyu, listen to what I'm about to say. You must remember it. Little Meaty's voice sounded out in his mind. The Emperor Realm is indeed the peak powerhouse of this world. But the heavens and earth aren't impossible to surpass. This involves the peak of the Emperor Realm. The Eternal Realm is also called a long-lived species. They are truly eternal and inextinguishable, coexisting with the heavens and earth. Yu bitterly smiled. He felt that with his current strength, even an Emperor Realm expert could casually slap him to death with a single slap. Speaking of these things was a bit too far ahead of his time. The Eternal Realm, a long-lived species, this was too far away. Little Meaty's tone was calm. Something like life, whether you believe it or not, it exists there. There are countless cultivators in the world, and crossing the threshold of the celestial realm to reach the Emperor Realm is indeed a difficult task. The chances of success are slim. But you are different. With my help and the little blue lamp in your hands, the Emperor Realm is already destined for you. It is a threshold you can easily cross. You must set your sights far into the future. The Eternal Realm is your goal. Only by reaching the Eternal Realm can you live on. Don't forget, someone is crossing realms to search for your position. Yu's eyes widened. Little Meaty said, "Your guess is correct." He lifted a hand and rubbed his face. Yu bitterly smiled again and again. So this was the one point the little blue lamp spoke of. It really was greater than the heavens. His previous small goal was to reach the true Emperor Realm within 30 years. Only like this would he have the strength to protect himself when the heavens and earth revealed Yu's identity as a barbarian sovereign. But before he could complete this small goal, an even greater problem had popped up. As expected, plans couldn't keep up with changes. These words were King reasonable. Yu sucked in a deep breath. What should I do? Little Meaty said, "It's very simple. Walk the road step by step and eat a mouthful of rice. The threshold to becoming a long-lived species is the true Emperor Realm cultivation. Today is the first step. In terms of enduring pain, you are quite good, but this time is different. You must be prepared if you can endure it. You will have the strength to fight a true emperor in the future." Rumble, rumble. Above Yu's head, the sun and moon vortexes roared and a rainbow-colored light gushed out. This 7-colored light was the fuel obtained from refining Taoist violet sky. It surged over and instantly submerged Yu's figure. Ah! He looked up and roared. Blue veins popped up on the surface of his skin, and his body violently shivered. At this moment, every inch of his flesh and bone was wailing in pain. Shwa! The phantom of a mountain appeared above Yu's head. It was the Skyfall mountain from before. Now its body was within the 7 colors, and its surface was beginning to dissolve. This dissolution meant that a complete Emperor Realm Great Tao was being refined. At the same time, it also meant that the remains of a true emperor would be completely destroyed, and only the purest Great Tao energy would be extracted and refined. It was the same as destroying a part of the world. Rumble. A deep bang suddenly exploded above their heads, and the sky turned pitch black in the blink of an eye. Like sticky ink, it sprinkled down a terrifying pressure. Shwa! Niu Dingtian, the patriarch, and the projections of the true martial emperors were startled. They suddenly raised their heads and looked above their heads. Their faces were filled with shock, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. This is the collapse of the Great Tao. A true martial emperor had fallen. The true martial emperor realm's Great Tao was connected to the heavens, and they could clearly sense that there were no true martial emperors fighting in the world. There could only be a single explanation for the phenomenon that had suddenly appeared before him. The battle in the void boundary had come to an end. One of Cheongji and spiritual master Violet Sky had fallen. Moreover, he was not simply killed, but his Great Tao had been completely destroyed. Otherwise, for a true martial emperor, as long as his Great Tao was intact, there was a chance that he could come back to life after a long time. Shou Huan, Who was this person? He had fought against 2 true martial emperors alone, but he had killed a true martial emperor. Even the strongest of the emperor realm couldn't do that. If Niu Dingtian was only 90% sure before, he was completely sure now. Zhou Huan was Qinyu. What had happened in front of him was deliberately set up by that person. What could attract spiritual master Violet Sky to join forces with true martial Emperor Chongji to kill Zhou Huan at the cost of burning his Tao foundation? It was natural that he was confused if he didn't know the identity of that person. But once he understood this point, everything became very simple. The temptation of the long-lived species. Niu Dingtian smiled bitterly. Fortunately, he didn't have any inappropriate thoughts about that person. Otherwise, the grass on his grave would have grown to several people's height. The long-lived species were indeed terrifying. Even though they had fallen from the perfect level, they still had trump cards that were difficult to resist. However, such a method was definitely not something that could be casually used by flesh. There had to be a limit to it. It didn't matter to spiritual master Violet Sky, but it was best not to kill Chongji. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome if they provoked the 13th floor, especially when there was the white jade capital behind the 13th floor. Niu Dingtian smiled self-mockingly. He was worrying too much. What kind of existence was he? He knew everything in the universe. How could he not consider this? The one who had been killed should be Violet Sky. But what was his purpose? It would be difficult to calm down after such a big commotion, and it would definitely attract attention. Once the existence of that person was completely exposed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Rumble, lightning exploded in the pitch-black sky like a waterfall, instantly piercing through the entire sky. Then, a rain of blood poured down, covering the world. At this moment, a strange aura suddenly appeared in the perception of the true emperors. Swish! Their eyes turned and fell on Li Ruhua. Now her eyes were closed, her face pale, and her body trembled as if she was suffering great pain. But during this process, Li Ruhua's aura continued to rise at an astonishing rate. Others couldn't see it, but in the eyes of the true emperors, a shadow of the great Tao was emerging behind Li Ruhua. It soared into the sky and reached the towering obstacle in front of all cultivators, the celestial being gate. Now, the shadow of the great Tao had completely lit up and was accumulating power. He knocked on the door and stepped into the emperor realm. Li Ruhua was breaking through. But today's situation was a little strange. Even the true emperors had never seen such a way of breaking through. It didn't seem like she had accumulated enough strength to break through the threshold of the celestial being realm. It was more like she had been forcefully pulled and pushed into it. Although it was hard to believe, the scene in front of them gave the true emperors such a feeling. Niu Dauda whispered, "Ancestor, what's wrong with her?" Niu Dingtian let out a breath and said in a deep voice, "She is breaking through. If nothing goes wrong, she will be a half-step emperor after today." After saying that, he paused and chuckled. This world is really unfair. Some people are stuck at this step for thousands of years until they decay but still can't break through. But some people don't have to do anything, but they are forcefully pushed into it. It's hard not to break through. Niu Dingtian was 100% sure that this matter must have something to do with that person. Apart from the long-lived species, who else could do it outside the legendary Eternal Realm? Pushing someone into the Emperor Realm was such a shocking thing that no one had ever heard of before. The clan leader looked at Niu Dingtian. "Niu Dingtian, you seem to know something?" Niu Dingtian narrowed his eyes and said expressionlessly, "Clan leader, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want." Just now, his conversation with Niu Daudu had been concealed, so no one could sense it. But from the looks of it, the clan chief had still managed to detect some traces of it. This half-dead old thing's perceptive ability was really strong. He had always suspected that the clan leader had hidden his strength, and now he could basically confirm it. But, no matter how strong you are, and even if you are related to the White Jade Jing, so what? Being chosen as the prey by that person meant that you were destined to fall into a hopeless situation with no chance of survival. That clan was definitely finished. Niu Dingtian dared to use his brain to guarantee that it was only a matter of time. The clan leader frowned and glanced at the still unconscious 327. He snorted coldly and said nothing. Up until now, he was also confused about what had happened today. He couldn't understand the situation at all. Had the Great Path really fallen into the hands of 327? Although, according to the information they had obtained, that was indeed the case. But the clan leader still felt that something was wrong. Western Wilderness. Heaven-plucking sect. Qin Yu chased away the 5 teachers who had hurried over. He told them that he was going into seclusion and that if they didn't want him to die, they should guard him and not allow anyone to come near. Then, without hesitation, he activated all the aura-isolating formations in the seclusion grounds. His face was full of shock and anger. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. Emperor Realm. Qin Yu was actually about to break through to the Emperor Realm. How was this possible? Even if he was born from the world and was called the Son of Heaven and Earth, it was impossible for him to break through to the Emperor Realm in such a short period of time. He still had to follow the rules. Everyone had to abide by the rules. No matter how great one's background was, one had to improve and become stronger step by step. But Qin Yu, that bastard, it was as if he had cheated and reached the heavens in a single step. Once he took this step, there was basically no way for him to escape from his clutches. Boom! Terrifying energy fluctuations erupted from Qin Yu's body. He didn't have time to think more, and immediately sat down cross-legged. In the next moment, the phantom of the Great Path appeared behind him. Void boundary ring. Rich, rainbow-colored light covered Qin Yu. He couldn't see what was happening inside, only muffled howls. Even if it was just the sound, one could instantly feel the pain he was enduring. The 9 heaven-span tune's Great Path had completely appeared above Qin Yu's head. It was constantly being lit up at a speed visible to the naked eye. What lit it up were the motes of light released by the refined Heavenfall Mountain. This light was the essence of the Great Path. After it had been refined, all of its attributes had been erased, leaving behind only pure strength. Now, only a third of the 9 heaven-span tunes had been lit up. The rainbow-colored Skyfall Mountain was only a shadow that would soon disappear. And this was the price one had to pay to refine the Great Path and only take its essence. Meaty's tired voice sounded out in his mind. A silver spear and a wax stick, all looks but no use. Her voice was full of disdain. In the next moment, there was a light crack and the phantom of Skyfall Mountain shattered. The surging rainbow-colored light disappeared with it. Thump! Qin Yu fell to the ground, gasping for breath. He felt as if he had been rescued from a mountain of daggers and a sea of fire. Warmth gushed out from his limbs and bones, instantly sweeping through his entire body. The pain rapidly dissipated. What followed was an indescribable sense of relaxation. A formidable strength shook and surged within his body. Qin Yu could clearly feel that his strength had greatly increased. But this still wasn't enough to fight the true sovereign, right? He closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a moment before opening them again. He definitely couldn't. At most he would be able to resist 1 or 2 strikes from the true sovereign, but in the end he would still be defeated. Meaty, Shua! Just as he was about to speak, she appeared out of thin air. She frowned and said, "The degree of your strength's increase is a bit worse than I imagined." A bit and then another bit. Qin Yu's lips couldn't help but twitch. He thought to himself, "When did you become infected by the little blue lamp? Why do you like to say such unreliable words?" Meaty rolled her eyes. "What are you thinking? I didn't say this was all the strength you can muster. Close your eyes and carefully sense it again." Qin Yu nodded and closed his eyes. Soon he sensed that something was different. Besides himself, there were the auras of 2 other great Daos. They came from the same source as him. It was as if he only needed a single thought to borrow their strength. No, it would be more accurate to say that he was gathering the strength that originally belonged to him from its scattered state into one. Shwa! Qinyu opened his eyes, a look of surprise on his face. The other two great Daos were incomparably far away from him, but in their auras he could still sense some familiar things. One was Qinyu. After he had planted a soul in this heaven and earth spirit embryo, he had refined it into his incarnation. In truth, Qinyu could understand that Qinyu's great Daos could be used by him. After all, the two of them were originally one. But the master of the other great Daos was actually Li Ruhua. Qinyu stared at Midi Midi. He said in a low voice, "What is going on with Li Ruhua?" Midi Midi yawned. "If you want to know, go ask yourself." How would I know? This excuse was far too perfunctory. Qinyu didn't continue asking. He looked at Midi Midi in front of him, and his complexion suddenly changed. "You're leaving?" Midi Midi looked at him. "Sir Qin, you've really become smart now." He nodded. "That's right. I've been out for too long this time. I have to return home and sleep for some time to restore my strength. So, you have to be careful in the future. Don't mess around when you have nothing better to do. Who knows when you might kill yourself?" She waved her hand, not giving Qinyu a chance to speak again. She turned and said, "I'm leaving. I hope that when I return, you will still be alive and kicking." Shwa! She vanished into thin air. In the deathly silence, the only one left was Qinyu. He looked in a daze in the direction that Midi Midi had left in, a piece missing from his heart. It was like a person who had lost a leg while walking. Midi Midi, she had left. She had left without hesitation. She hadn't even given Qinyu a chance to say goodbye. He had already expected this day, and Midi Midi had already warned him. But now that this matter truly occurred, Qinyu found it hard to accept. This had nothing to do with his strength or his rationality. It only concerned his heart. From now on, he would walk the great Tao alone. Li Ruhua opened her eyes. At this time, she had already crossed the gate of heaven and become a half-step sovereign. But now, there wasn't the least bit of happiness in her heart. There was a complex look in her eyes. She stood up and bowed to Niu Dingtian. Then her eyes fell on Niu Daodu. "Tell Qinyu that he will never know the answer." She soared into the skies and left, vanishing from sight. Li Ruhua already knew everything. But she had no way to face Qinyu. She could only choose to leave, a half-step sovereign of the 13th floor. In a situation where there was no conflict of interest, no one was willing to make things difficult for her. The crowd of true emperors, including the patriarch, didn't do anything. They allowed her to leave. Niu Daodu was stunned. Her eyes widened. "Old ancestor, what does Li Ruhua mean? What does she want me to tell Qinyu?" Niu Dingtian sighed. He reached out and patted her head. Li Ruhua broke through to the half-step sovereign realm. She was overjoyed and her mind was momentarily confused. Just ignore her. Niu Daodu frowned. "Is that so? Why do I feel something is wrong? And how did she know about Qinyu?" Niu Dingtian said maybe they knew each other before. "Anyway, I'm right. Don't think too much about it." He almost couldn't make up any more stories. Previously, Niu Dingtian had thought about making Qinyu his grandson-in-law. But now he had already given up on this idea. It would be courting death to compete with that person. He didn't want his precious granddaughter to lose her life inexplicably one day. No way. He had to find an opportunity to talk to Qinyu as soon as possible. He couldn't let Daodu sink deeper. Chapter 1754. "The flames on Cloud's sweeping peak have been extinguished," the old ancestor of the Tao Essence sect suddenly said. It could be confirmed that Taoist Qingtian was dead. He was the one who died. What about true Emperor Cheongji? Where was he now? There was also Zhou Huan. His whereabouts were unknown. Niu Daodu didn't have time to think about what happened today had to do with Qinyu. Her eyes widened. Old ancestor, did Zhou Huan win? Why hasn't he come out yet? Niu Dingtian said he should have one. The boundary ring will return to where it left from and return the small world to this world. He looked at Niu Daodu. Let's wait a bit longer. As a matter of fact, he was quite worried, as this matter involved true Emperor Cheongji, who was backed by the 13th Tower. If this matter attracted the attention of the 13th Tower, then even if that person was strong and had incredible cards, he might not be able to stop them. After all, above the 13th Tower was white jade capital. If the old were beaten, an even older one would come. And above that even older one was the old ancestor. This was the reason why no one dared to provoke the cultivators of the 13th Tower. But there was nothing that could be done. This was the amazing thing about having a powerful background. In truth, true Emperor Cheongji didn't go far. He didn't tell the 13th Tower about the long-lived species. It wasn't because he still had the thought of seizing the long-lived species, but because of a simple reason: he didn't dare. Qin Yu's last sword strike had nearly split open his stomach. An annihilating life force had invaded his body. After escaping from the Void Realm and returning to the world, true Emperor Cheongji discovered that although the destructive force could be suppressed, it was already like a maggot in his bones. It had become a huge hidden danger. Moreover, when he tried to probe it, he received a warning. This annihilating power was only temporarily dormant. In other words, if necessary, it could erupt at any time and pierce through his heart. True Emperor Cheongji was shocked and angry. His expression was uncertain. He hesitated again and again, but in the end he didn't dare to risk it. The reason was simple. The strongest Tower Master of the 13th Tower wasn't a long-lived species. No one could save him. As for sacrificing himself to pass information about the long-lived species to the 13th Tower, sacrificing himself to fulfill the Tower Master's dream of living forever. I'm sorry, but I'm too poor to do that. Right now, he only had one thought. How could he survive? Clearly, the answer lay in Zhou Huan. Of course, Cheongji wouldn't leave. He was also waiting for Zhou Huan to come out. The Void Realm. Qin Yu's spirits rose. After all, Midi was only leaving. There would come a day when they would meet again. As long as he was still alive. Therefore, surviving was the key. He took a deep breath and exhaled. Then he looked up at the shining boundary ring above his head. With a thought, Zhang Xian realized that he could actually control it directly. It was probably Little Meat who had helped him settle this before she left. And when Qin Yu touched the boundary ring, a thought fluctuation spread into his mind. It was indeed Meaty. You can trust Niu Dingtian, but never trust anyone unreservedly. You can discuss the follow-up plans with him. I'm really leaving. Live well. Meaty's voice disappeared. Qin Yu was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. Even if you left so quickly, you still remembered me in your heart. Meaty, I look forward to seeing you again. He raised his hand and gripped it. The boundary ring trembled. As his thoughts moved, it broke through the Void Realm and returned to the world. At the same time as the boundary ring began its return journey, there was a response from the outside world. A small world that had been borrowed was about to return. The Patriarch's eyes sharpened. He didn't know the truth, but his intuition told him that today's events involved that clan. What happened today involved that clan. He had to find out the truth. And the answer lay with Zhou Huan. Niu Dingtian swept his eyes over and subconsciously frowned. This old thing had ill intentions, but he wasn't too worried. First, with that person's help, he didn't need to fear them. Taking a step back, they still had 327 in their hands. Which clan would be willing to abandon her? The other true sovereigns were silent, but a dignified look appeared in their eyes. Within the phantoms, there were deep and cryptic fluctuations of strength, ready to erupt. Once a problem occurred, and they needed to act, they could arrive at any time. Bang! Space shook. The tiny den in front of them instantly enlarged and expanded. The vanished small world returned to the world once more. The boundary ring was taken away and it lost its suppressive strength. The strength that erupted from the small world instantly swept out in all directions. Rumble, rumble, vast and boundless, it shook the heavens and earth. But now it wasn't able to cause any damage. With so many true sovereigns gathered together, they only needed to think to quell the impact. This was the situation. But in reality, the true sovereigns who seemed to be able to suppress everything had extremely dignified expressions. This was because the one who appeared in front of them was Chinyu. Moreover, he was alone. There was no need to say that Venerable Sky-High had been killed. But true sovereign Cheongji had also disappeared. Could it be that they were all killed by him alone? No way. If this was the case, the 13th floor would have already acted. They wouldn't have remained silent until now. What was going on? Eyes fell on Chinyu. Within their dignified expressions there was a deep fear. This was because he was the one who had killed Venerable Sky-High, who had burned his Tao foundation and become comparable to a true sovereign. Although Sky-High, who had burned his Tao foundation, was slightly different from a true sovereign, this was enough to show that he had the ability to threaten them. But this was enough to show that Chinyu had the ability to threaten them. If one added in the missing Cheongji hiss, the threat level of this junior in front of them was off the charts. No one spoke. The true sovereigns were all observing. This was because they didn't sense any strength that was too strong. Zhou Huan. Niu Daodu rushed out, her face excited. Chinyu smiled. He had already seen 327 behind Niu Dingtian. Thank you, Miss Niu. He had said similar words many times during this time, but his words of thanks would come true one day. Niu Dingtian stepped forward and said, Zhou Huan, hand her over to my Niu family. I have kept her for you until now. Now I will return her to you. As for the following matters, you will have to deal with them yourself. Chinyu cupped his hands together. Thank you, Senior Niu. I will remember this favor. Niu Daodu's eyes widened in dissatisfaction. Old ancestor, how can you do this? She was filled with righteous indignation. Niu Dingtian was so angry that he almost laughed. What else could he do? Now that he and Zhou Huan were as close as a family, should he continue acting? From her eyes and demeanor, he had already received the signal. Old foxes were like this. With just a little hint, they could coordinate perfectly. So he had to act as a stranger that Zhou Huan didn't know. It would be best if there was some conflict between the two. And the point of conflict, Niu Daodu was the best choice. As for Chinyu's safety, Niu Dingtian didn't doubt it at all. Since Chinyu had killed Daoist Qingtian alone, it would be fine as long as he didn't look for trouble. Daodu, come back! Niu Dingtian shouted. Niu Daodu's eyes widened in astonishment. Old Niu, send the miss home. If she resists, tie her up. Shua, Uncle Niu appeared. He bitterly smiled. Old ancestor, this. Niu Dingtian frowned. Didn't you hear what I said? Yes. Uncle Niu turned around and bowed. Miss, let's go. Niu Daodu shook her head. I won't go. Old ancestor, what's wrong? Niu Dingtian flicked his sleeves. Space twisted and Uncle Niu and Niu Daodu were sent away. In his heart, he bitterly smiled. He must have offended the little ancestor. But whether it was for the sake of the plot or his own conscience, he was happy to take Niu Daodu away from this kid. Humph! Niu Dingtian coldly snorted. He looked at Chinyu indifferently. I don't know who you are, but please stay away from my granddaughter in the future. Otherwise, I won't be polite. This scene made many true sovereigns ponder. However, if they were in Niu Dingtian's shoes, they would also choose to do the same. Before the situation was clear, they should separate from each other to avoid being involved. Chinyu praised in his heart. Old Niu was good, and his acting was excellent. He frowned and looked at Niu Dingtian angrily. Okay, I agree. He raised his hand and 327 fell into his hand. The clan leader suddenly took a step forward. Heaven and earth suddenly sank, as if a mountain was pressing down on them. Zhou Huan, return my clan's number 327 to me at once. Qin Yu frowned. Are you the patriarch? He hesitated, took a deep breath, and shook his head. I'm sorry. Due to some reasons, I can't give 327 to you yet. But don't worry, I won't hurt her at all. I just want to figure something out. The patriarch took a step forward. You're indeed powerful to be able to kill spiritual master Qingtian. Let me see what you're capable of. The Zhou Huan in front of him was extremely mysterious. The patriarch had taken this step because it was impossible for him to give up 327, and also because he was gambling. He was gambling that Qin Yu wouldn't dare to attack him. Otherwise, all his cards would be exposed. He wasn't at the Emperor realm, but he could kill spiritual master Qingtian and cause true sovereign Qiongji to go missing. He must have some tricks up his sleeve. Once this trick was exposed in front of everyone, it would attract covetous eyes. After all, everyone wanted good things. This was a very simple and straightforward principle. Qin Yu's expression turned ugly. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't. The situation was in a stalemate. However, this silence did not last for long. Stop! True sovereign Qiongji descended and looked at the patriarch coldly. Patriarch, I won't allow you to attack fellow Taoist Zhou Huan. He roared at the sky with an earth-shattering momentum. This was because true sovereign Qiongji was in his true form. The Taoist had disappeared after being killed, so he lost the ability to take human form. When Qin Yu faced the patriarch, he revealed an awkward expression. Qiongji knew that his chance had come. He wanted to live, and his hope of survival rested on Qin Yu. After the incident with Jie Su, the idea of using force had completely dissipated. If he didn't use force, he could only think of a way to gain Qin Yu's favor and slowly plan. Chapter 1755. Help Qin Yu overcome this crisis. Otherwise, once the patriarch attacked, the secrets of the long-lived species would be exposed. The secret of the long-lived species was about to be exposed. The consequences could be imagined. In Qiongji's eyes, the favor he was doing today could be said to be enormous. Disregarding what Qiongji was thinking, the true sovereigns present frowned as they saw him suddenly appear. The more they thought about it, the more they couldn't understand the current situation. Sage Qingtian had clearly joined forces with true sovereign Qiongji to use the boundary ring to deal with Qin Yu. Now that Qingtian had been killed, only Qin Yu was left. He had returned from the void boundary alone, and true sovereign Qiongji had been waiting outside for a long time. Taking a step back, even if he didn't care about these things, there was no need for true sovereign Qiongji to protect Qin Yu, right? Could something have happened in the void realm that they didn't know about? The patriarch frowned, his face gloomy. Qiongji, what is the meaning of this? He was annoyed. He felt that nothing would go smoothly today. Just as he was about to force Qin Yu back, true sovereign Qiongji suddenly jumped out and completely destroyed him. Qiongji coldly sneered. In the void realm, sage Qingtian schemed to kill me and steal my cultivation to fill my Dao gap. Luckily, fellow Taoist Zhou Huan helped me, and I was able to escape. This is a life-saving grace. He looked up and swept his eyes around. Today I will say this. If anyone wants to touch fellow Taoist Zhou Huan, they must pass through me first. Strange things happened every year, but there were many today. Did true sovereign Qiongji eat the wrong medicine, or was his brain damaged? He actually jumped out to protect Zhou Huan. The true sovereigns fell silent, all of them finding this unbelievable. Sage Qingtian schemed to kill Qiongji? Forget it, this wasn't reliable. With Qingtian's cultivation, even if he burned his Dao foundation, only death awaited him if he attacked true sovereign Qiongji. Moreover, when he entered the void realm, true sovereign still had the boundary ring of the 13th tower. He was like a tiger that had grown wings. There was definitely something fishy going on. But true Sovereign Cheongji insisted on this point. Of the three people in the Void Realm, Qing Tian was already dead. As long as Zhou Huan didn't expose him, no one would know the truth. Only Niu Dingtian guessed that Cheongji must have been schemed against by that person. Although he escaped the Void Realm alive, he had no choice. It was not entirely correct, but that was the general meaning. The old ox once again rejoiced inwardly. He was truly reckless, actually daring to provoke that person. Humph! The fact that he was still alive was already a great stroke of luck. Qin Yu blinked his eyes. He coughed and said, "True, Sovereign Cheongji, I can understand that the Patriarch is anxious to save someone. There is no need to make the situation too stiff." Cheongji was delighted. "Fellow Taoist Zhou Huan is right, but I will not sit idly by today. Don't worry." It was effective. The decision to leave a favorable impression on him was the right one. The Patriarch's face was cloudy and uncertain. He stared at Qin Yu, his heart in a difficult position. 327 was in the enemy's hands, and even now it had not woken up. Moreover, with Cheongji interfering, there was no way he could force Qin Yu to bow his head. Apart from that, the clan leader realized that Zhou Huan's attitude toward him was still very calm. She displayed a kind of restraint and forbearance. She did not reveal any hostile emotions because of his continuous attacks. Instead, it seemed more like a kind of helplessness. This was a little strange. It was a very simple logic. If the two of them were to exchange positions, he would definitely be extremely angry. What was the reason? Looking at 327 in Qin Yu's arms, a thought suddenly sprang up in his mind. Could it be that the great Tao of Skyfall Mountain had fallen into Zhou Huan's hands? And this could also explain why true Sovereign Cheongji and Sage Skyhigh had directly attacked Zhou Huan and ignored 327. The clan leader's heart shook. He deeply looked at Qin Yu. He took a deep breath and said, "I can take a step back for now, but you must give me an explanation." Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "Thank you, Patriarch." He thought for a moment and said, "I am willing to temporarily go to Long Mountain territory as a guest." "True," Sovereign Cheongji said. "I will go with fellow Taoist Zhou Huan." Qin Yu said, "Thank you, true Sovereign Cheongji." The clan leader nodded. "Very well." He gestured with his hand. "You too, please." "Hold on." Baiji suddenly shouted. She glared at Qin Yu. "I am with him." Qin Yu looked over and couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. This woman really didn't fear death. She actually dared to meddle in it this time. But since she had already spoken, Qin Yu couldn't refuse. Otherwise he would be suspected. At that time, Baiji would be in danger. He calmly nodded and said, "She is one of my people." The clan leader looked over. "Very well." Schwa. Space flashed, and the several people disappeared. Today's show is really interesting. I can't understand it. The one who spoke was the old ancestor of the Tao Essence sect. There must be something hidden. I always feel that Zhou Huan is hiding something deeply. Could it be an old friend that has returned from the River of Time? It is possible. The true sovereigns had thoughtful expressions. Niu Dingtian sneered. "What's the use of guessing? He was here just now. So why didn't you say anything?" There was an awkward silence. The old ancestor of the Tao Essence sect clenched his teeth. "Old Niu, you didn't say anything just now. How dare you laugh at us?" Niu Dingtian rolled his eyes. "Let me tell you, this Zhou Huan is mysterious and unfathomable. It is best to stay away from him, lest he provokes trouble." After saying that, he cupped his fists, turned around, took a step forward, and disappeared into thin air. Although this old Niu's words aren't pleasant to hear, he is right. The old ancestor of the Tao Essence sect pondered. He was in a hurry to separate from Zhou Huan. Could it be that he has sensed something? Everyone had seen what happened just now with their own eyes, and it matched Niu Dingtian's current behavior. Let's wait and see. Since Zhou Huan has jumped into our sight, he won't disappear just like that, a true sovereign said. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. I'll take my leave too. Shua, shua. The true sovereigns left the place. On the surface, he appeared to be extremely calm. However, the attention he was paying to this matter did not decrease in the slightest. It was because Venerable Qingtian was dead. Although he was a fake true sovereign, it was a fact that he could fight a true sovereign after burning his Dao foundation. If he could kill him, there was a high chance that he could kill all the true sovereigns present today. How could they not be wary of him? In this world, it had been a long time since a true sovereign had died. If they couldn't figure out what had happened, how could the true sovereigns feel at ease? In particular, it was obvious that Zhou Huan had joined forces with that clan. Don't take everyone for fools. Do you really think that no one could see the strange attitudes of both sides? The great Tao of Skyfall Mountain. Humph humph. It was hard to say just who had fallen into their hands. And in a situation where that clan had clearly been reduced to a huge cake that everyone coveted, Zhou Huan had suddenly popped out. Perhaps the situation was about to change. There was also true sovereign Qiongji. His relationship with Zhou Huan was also very strange. They couldn't help but think about it. Everlasting Mountain Region, Domain Master Mansion. Space shook and a group of figures appeared. An anxious elder had been waiting here for a long time. He hurried over. Patriarch! His voice paused and his eyes fell on true sovereign Qiongji. Deep fear in them. Why would a true sovereign of the 13th floor appear here? 327. The elder's eyes brightened. He stared at Qinyu. Who are you? Immediately hand him over. The patriarch said, don't be rude. His eyes fell on Qinyu. Fellow Taoist Zhou Huan, what is it? You can speak now. He glanced at the shrunken Qiongji from the corner of his eyes. Qinyu took a deep breath and nodded. That's right. The great Tao of Skyfall Mountain has been obtained by me. Impossible. The elder blurted out, his face filled with anger. He had already obtained news that 327 had become the master of the great Tao. How could it have suddenly become this boy in front of him? The patriarch sighed inwardly. It really was like this. But he didn't reveal any emotion on his face. How can I prove it? Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. The phantom of Skyfall Mountain appeared above his head. Of course. All that was left was a phantom without any charm of the great Tao. This was because its essence had been swallowed up by Qin Yu. With the clan chief's eyesight, he was naturally able to tell what the silhouette before him represented. The ownership of the great Tao had already been revealed. Although he was prepared in his heart, he still couldn't help but feel a bit frustrated. All their hard work was for naught in the end. If the great Tao was in the hands of that clan, then his situation would have been completely different. But now that things had come to this, he could only accept it. The patriarch cupped his hands together and said, according to the contract, starting from today, fellow Taoist Zhou Huan will be my clan's exalted one for 300 years. During this period of time, I ask fellow Taoist Zhou Huan to join hands with me and protect my clan from harm. Qin Yu waved his hand. Patriarch, please wait. He pondered for a moment, then slowly said, I did obtain the great Tao of Mount Tianluo, but I have no way to use it to become a true emperor. Therefore, I'm afraid the contract between me and that clan cannot be fulfilled. The patriarch frowned, his eyes icy cold. Fellow Taoist Zhou Huan, do you plan on tearing up the contract? Let me remind you to consider this carefully. Humph. True sovereign Qiongji stepped forwards. Fellow Taoist Zhou Huan is my savior. When it was time to appear, one had to be decisive. When it came to brushing up favorable impressions, Qiongji was also a first-rate expert. This time around, the clan chief did not back down in the slightest because of Qiongji's appearance. His face was expressionless and his tone was calm. True sovereign Qiongji, knows of my clan's current situation. Are you sure you want to interfere? If this involves the inheritance of my clan and the survival of my clan, I might really go crazy. And if I go crazy, you might not want to see me go crazy. Cheongji's pupils shrank. At this moment, he could feel an intense, dangerous aura from the patriarch. It was terrifying to the extreme, like an abyss of destruction. Qin Yu promptly said, "Patriarch, please calm down. If I really wanted to tear up the contract, I wouldn't have appeared here." He looked at Cheongji. "All of you withdraw first and wait for me on the side." Cheongji relaxed. He hurriedly nodded. Yes. He turned and left. He really didn't want to risk his life against the patriarch. It would be best if he didn't. Otherwise, he might really be beaten to death by this old thing. He was definitely hiding his strength. Baiji hesitated for a moment. Then, she clenched her teeth and followed behind. She had to figure out just what had happened. This was because not too long ago her connection with the madam had been cut off. The patriarch's eyes brightened. He raised his hand. "You also leave." The elder respectfully nodded. He looked at Qin Yu with shock and surprise. This was because, just now, Qin Yu had sent true Emperor Cheongji away with just one sentence. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe. After all, that was a true emperor from the 13th Tower. He had always been known for his ruthlessness and arrogance. However, the patriarch seemed to have expected this. He was quite calm. After the elder left, the patriarch said, "Zhou Huan, what do you mean by this?" Qin Yu thought quickly. He quickly went through the plan in his mind. After making sure that he didn't miss anything, he exhaled. "My name is not Zhou Huan." The first sentence. This caused the clan leader to furrow his brows, because this was out of his expectations. With a thought, all the effects of the disguise disappeared at this moment. What appeared in front of the patriarch was a brand new face. With the crackling of his bones and flesh, his body even grew a few inches taller. Qin Yu of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect. The patriarch said slowly. At this moment, the air almost froze. He seemed extremely calm, but his body was like a volcano, ready to release an annihilating strength at any moment. His eyes were icy cold as he waited for an explanation. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "Yes, it is me." He cupped his hands together. "Before entering Skyfall Mountain, in order to avoid conflict with the patriarch, I had to hide my identity. I ask that the patriarch doesn't blame me." The patriarch didn't speak. His eyes turned even colder. "Don't blame me?" "Humph, humph." Qin Yu said, "Today I took the initiative to reveal my identity to show my sincerity. So, I ask the patriarch to believe that the grudges of the past are in the past. As for the living, they need to look forward." These words were, of course, false. In truth, the reason was simple. Little Meaty had left, and the little blue lamp had thoroughly hidden itself. Qin Yu could no longer maintain his perfect disguise. Even if he didn't say anything, it would soon be exposed. Thus, taking the initiative to reveal his identity was a decision he had made long ago. Of course, his relationship with that clan wouldn't be discovered because of this. The boundary ring was Little Meaty's trump card. Thinking about it, it was also because of this that she had seized this treasure from Cheongji's hands. The patriarch's tone was icy cold. "How can I believe you?" In the past, when the heaven-splitting sword sect suffered a great calamity and was directly destroyed, that was all the work of that clan. The hatred between the two sides could be said to be as deep as the sea. He certainly wouldn't easily believe them. Qin Yu said, "Although the position of heaven-splitting sword sect master is my identity, it is not what I ultimately want. What I want is to be like the patriarch, to become a true peak existence between the heavens and earth. If you want the sect master to believe this, the truth is simple. Today, I, Qin Yu, am willing to swear upon the great Tao that I will never pursue the grudges between the heaven-splitting sword sect and that clan in the future. If I violate this oath, the heavens will punish me." This oath was extremely heavy. Moreover, the most important thing was that the patriarch had already confirmed that Qin Yu had obtained the great Tao of Skyfall Mountain. In other words, he had the qualifications to make a great Tao oath. Now the oath had been confirmed. If Qin Yu dared to violate it in the slightest, he would suffer a backlash from the great Tao. The patriarch's complexion relaxed a little. He flicked his sleeves, and the world was instantly isolated. Sect Master Qin, please sit. Qin Yu relaxed. This should be a pass. He had been worried just now that the patriarch would ask him to make an even more serious oath. For instance, if he were to never be enemies with that clan, then there would be no way for the plot to continue. He would have to tear apart all pretense of cordiality and fight to the death. Although this would be delightful, it wouldn't be in line with long-term benefits. What Qin Yu wanted wasn't a moment of pleasure, but to completely uproot that clan. This point hadn't changed at all, just because he discovered the existence of 327. Of course, Qin Yu also had to thoroughly investigate the matter of 327, and the identity of that clan's exalted would clearly help him gain a deeper understanding of the internal situation of that clan. He placed the unconscious 327 in the shade of a tree. The two sat down. The air was silent for a moment. Then the patriarch slowly said, Sect Master Qin is wise to be able to put down past grudges. Otherwise, in a situation where our clan is facing so many external troubles, we would have definitely acted in order to warn everyone. Destroying the heaven-opening sword sect was a good deterrent. But now, such a thing naturally won't happen again. He looked up, his eyes sharp as if he could see through Qin Yu. However, I would like to know just what Sect Master Qin meant by your words just now. Moreover, if possible, I would also like to know just what happened in the Void Realm. True Sovereign Cheongji's attitude towards you seems unusual. Qin Yu tapped his fingers together. First, I will answer the Patriarch's first question. As I said before, although I obtained the great Tao of Skyfall Mountain, there were some problems within that caused me to be unable to rely on it to directly become a true sovereign. And this matter involves 327. That is why I was in such a difficult position and wasn't willing to return her to the Patriarch. He revealed a look of hesitation. Then he bitterly smiled. Since I have come to the everlasting mountain region, I will speak my mind. Before this, I did indeed think of using a loophole in the contract to leave without exposing the fact that it was my sect that obtained the great Tao of Skyfall Mountain. I am well aware of the situation of that clan. As exalted who isn't at the sovereign realm, it is easy for one to die. The Patriarch maintained his composure. I can understand. Qin Yu nodded. But afterwards, before I could leave, I was schemed against by true Sovereign Cheongji and sage Violet Sky. And this can explain the Patriarch's second question. The reason why true Sovereign Cheongji's attitude towards me is different isn't because I saved him, but because he is under the control of my sect and has no choice but to lower his head. As for the specific reason, it involves the secrets of my sect, so it is inconvenient to tell the Patriarch. A sharp light flashed in the Patriarch's eyes. Before, when Qin Yu admitted that he had obtained the great Tao of Skyfall Mountain, he didn't conceal it from Cheongji. Thus, the Patriarch had sensed something strange. To control a true sovereign, he really did have a hidden card in his hands. It was just that he didn't know what degree of control he had. Sect Master Qin, I have heard your answer, but you still haven't told me what you plan to do next. The Patriarch had a calm expression. You are well aware of the situation of my clan. You should understand that we cannot do without an exalted. Qin Yu said, I am willing to become an exalted of that clan, but the Patriarch must also agree to my conditions. Sect Master, please speak. First, I want to unify Swallow Mountain. I want the heaven-splitting sword sect to become the #1 sword sect of the present age and the orthodox inheritance of the sword Tao. Second, I want Niu Dingtian's granddaughter, Niu Daodu. There was nothing he could do. For the sake of the plot, he could only say this. Chapter 1756. The patriarch's heart stirred as he looked at Qin. The first thing is not difficult. But the second thing, Niu Dingtian, is not to be trifled with. Qin said, I can unify Swallow Mountain by myself, but it will take some time. In other words, the second condition was the main point. The patriarch said, I need an explanation? I don't believe it. Qin frowned and said, Niu Daodu is related to the cultivation of our sect's great Tao. I can't tell you more. That was right. Niu Dingtian was in a hurry to cut ties with Qin, which was a bit abrupt. But what if he had already sensed Qin's desire for Niu Daodu? Everything would be reasonable. As for the truth of Qin's desire for Niu Daodu, the patriarch didn't care. Everyone had their own desires. He only needed to ensure that he could protect the interests of the clan. Niu Dingtian and that clan were only separated by a thin layer of window paper. They had not completely fallen out with each other. Since Qin stood on the opposite side of Niu Dingtian, there was a solid foundation for cooperation between them. Sect leader Qin, I can agree to your condition. The patriarch said, but what can I get in return? As you said, you can't become a true emperor for the time being. Our clan needs a true emperor to stabilize the situation. Qin raised his hand, and the mountain river sword fell into his hand. He raised his hand and slashed at the sky. Rumble! Like a clap of thunder, the sealing spell set up by the clan chief was instantly shattered. The sky was split into two. The terrifying sword breath was like a big mouth, destroying everything. Qin put away his sword and looked calm. Patriarch, do you think our sect can help you stabilize the situation? Sword cultivators were the most lethal in the world. To them, leaping levels to fight was a very common thing. A half-emperor could fight a true emperor. The patriarch's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and smiled. Welcome, sect leader Qin. You and I will work together, and we will have a bright future. Clan leader, there is a matter that requires your approval. The 327 involves the great Tao that I have attained. I hope that she can continue to stay by my side for a period of time. The patriarch nodded. Very well. I will have her follow Sovereign Qin to cultivate in the future. Baiji's complexion was ugly. Qin knew. She didn't expect that she would be kept in the dark from the beginning to the end. This showed that in the whole plan, the madam did not see her as a useful pawn. This was the hardest thing for Baiji to accept. But now she couldn't care less. She asked coldly, Where is madam? Why can't I sense her aura? Qin lifted a hand and pressed down. Keep your voice down. Although I've sealed off this place, if that clan finds out, there's a high chance you'll die here. Of course he could escape. Looking at Baiji, who was about to explode, Qin secretly shook his head. She was such a beautiful girl, so why did she have to take things too hard? However, he couldn't let her get into trouble now. She's gone. She's gone for a while. Baiji stared at him, motionless. Qin said, It's true. Where is madam's home? You can't find it. Baiji wanted to say something else. Qin glanced at her. Shua. The air suddenly fell silent. A powerful pressure covered the space around them like an invisible mountain. I know that Baiji has never had a good impression of me, but since you said that you are with me, you better cooperate with me in the future and don't cause any trouble. This is a reminder and a warning. It doesn't matter if you ruin my plan, but if you ruin Little Meat's plan, no one can save you. Baiji's eyes brightened. Is this also part of madam's plan? Qin nodded. Baiji said, Good. I won't cause trouble. I will do my best to help madam. There was a trace of excitement in her heart. I finally participated in madam's plan. Qin waved his hand, sending Baiji away. He rubbed his temples. Indeed, to deal with Baiji, using Little Meat was the best choice. This little hidden danger beside him was temporarily stabilized. Next, he had to investigate what was going on between him and 327. 327. Please instruct me, Patriarch. Starting from today, you will follow Qinyu and monitor his every move. If there is anything wrong, immediately report back to me. Yes. She turned and left. After waking up, 327's face was pale. Her true identity had been exposed, so there was no need to hide it any longer. She changed into a plain dress. Qinyu. 327 bit her lips. The great Tao of Skyfall Mountain had already been determined. It was obtained by the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect Master. But why was it like this? When she was at Skyfall Mountain, she had clearly grasped half of the great Tao and could freely control its power. She took a deep breath and suppressed her tumbling thoughts. Then she turned and left. Soon, her figure appeared in front of a courtyard within the Domain Chief Manor. She knocked on the door. Enter. A calm voice sounded out. The door opened by itself. 327 stepped in. The first thing she saw was Qinyu sitting in the courtyard. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped forward and bowed. Greetings, exalted Qin. Qinyu nodded. 327, the Patriarch has already looked for you? Starting from today, you will follow me and cultivate. Yes. If there is anything you need, you can instruct me. 327 respectfully said. Qinyu said, there is nothing right now. Once the grand ceremony ends 3 days from now, I will return to Swallow Mountain. Go back and prepare yourself. He couldn't investigate her identity right now. Otherwise, it would easily arouse the vigilance of that clan. 327 bowed and drew back. Qinyu let out a deep breath, his eyebrows furrowing together. This meeting with 327 was a bit different. Perhaps it was because his current boundary had risen, but his perception was much clearer. The relationship between him and 327 seemed to be even deeper than that of a blood relation. Just who was she? On the other side, the retreating 327 couldn't help but reveal a thoughtful expression. Without any reason, she also felt a sense of closeness from Qinyu. Was it because of the great Tao of Skyfall Mountain? 3 days later, that clan held a grand ceremony as scheduled. They officially announced to the outside world that the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect Master, Qinyu, had become an exalted of the clan. When the news came out, all those paying attention to the Long Mountain region immediately understood that the master of that terrifying sword aura was Qinyu. And the power of that sword was enough to prove everything. The world's first half-emperor realm sword cultivator had been born. The name of the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect Master, Qinyu, had spread throughout the world in a single day. The impact of this news even surpassed the shock brought by the ownership of the great Tao at Skyfall Mountain. Although there were few true emperors in the world, they were above the clouds, and there was only one half-emperor realm sword cultivator who had crossed the threshold of divinity. He had broken an unsurpassable shackle in front of all sword cultivators in the world. There was now an emperor realm sword cultivator among sword cultivators. The world's sword cultivators were in an uproar. Countless great sword cultivators had already set off for Swallow Mountain, requesting an audience with the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect Master, their attitudes extremely humble. And it was at this time that Qinyu bid farewell to that clan. Becoming an exalted of that clan didn't mean that he had to stay here forever. That clan's exalted also had his own secluded cultivation area and did not have to stay in the Long Mountain region. After all, the world was vast and could be reached with a single thought. Distance was no longer a problem for Emperor Realm cultivators. The clan exalted nodded with a smile. Sect Master Qin has returned in glory. This seat has already given orders to fully cooperate with the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect and help the Sect Master achieve his wish as soon as possible and unify Swallow Mountain. Many thanks, Clan Exalted. Farewell. Qinyu took a step forward, and a towering sword hum suddenly sounded. He swept up 327 and Baiji beside him and shot into the sky. They disappeared in an instant. True Emperor Cheongji was expressionless. Clan exalted. This seat does have some connections with sect Master Qin, but please keep this a secret. The clan exalted replied, Don't worry, this seat will not destroy my own foundation. As a half-emperor realm cultivator, Qin Yu was indeed qualified to become an exalted of that clan and help him stabilize the situation. But what if the 13th Tower knew that Qin Yu had secretly controlled true Emperor Cheongji? It was obvious that the 13th Tower would not let this go. This was a huge lightning bolt. With this information in hand, Qin Yu would forever be an exalted of that clan. 300 years? No such thing exists. This was also an important reason why the clan exalted was willing to trust Qin Yu, to give someone a weakness. But what he didn't know was that to Qin Yu, this weakness wasn't anything at all. This was because the 13th Tower, which had a human cultivation system, was Qin Yu's great life and death enemy. Once his identity as wild sovereign was exposed, the two sides would fight to the death. And this point in time was less than 30 years. Humph! True Emperor Cheongji understood his meaning. His eyes were icy cold. Patriarch! There are some things that you shouldn't think too highly of. I am not your exalted. Shwa! He vanished into thin air. The clan exalted revealed a faint smile. He didn't care at all about being threatened to his face. The more true Emperor Cheongji acted tough, the more panicked he was in his heart. As long as he was controlled by Qin Yu, that clan could benefit from this. Of course, this matter had to be kept secret. He didn't want to withstand the wrath of the 13th Tower. In the midst of the towering sword shadows, Qin Yu suddenly turned his head and looked to the side. In the next moment, true Emperor Cheongji appeared, a smile on his face. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves, and the sword shadow split into two, sending 327 and Baiji to the other side. On the other side, true Emperor Cheongji stepped in, a bitter smile on his face. Thank you, Sect Master Qin, for saving some face for me. Qin Yu said, True Emperor Cheongji, there is no need to act pitiful in front of me. You and Sage Skyhigh joined forces to try and kill me, so you only have yourself to blame for your fate today. You shouldn't think that just because you helped me a little that I would let bygones be bygones, right? True Emperor Cheongji's bitter smile instantly vanished. Sect Master Qin is right. If I made a mistake, then I will naturally admit it. But, in the end, I am the true sovereign of the 13th Tower. Once this matter is exposed, the heaven-splitting sword sect will face imminent disaster. So what? These words caused a cold sweat to appear on true Emperor Cheongji's back. Qin Yu had no expression. Since I was able to let go of past grudges and become the exalted of that clan, I will not care about the heaven-splitting sword sect. If worst comes to worst, I'll just change my appearance and live another life. Or perhaps, true monarch Cheongji, do you think that the 13th Tower will accept the allegiance of a new half-monarch realm sword cultivator, or will they insist on avenging the death of a true monarch? True Emperor Cheongji was thoroughly defeated. His face paled. In particular, Qin Yu's last words contained a great killing power. This was because when Qin Yu was able to conceal his identity and enter Skyfall Mountain, that was more than enough to prove his ability to conceal his aura. Not even a true sovereign could discover him. Moreover, now that his strength had risen, his aura-concealing abilities should have also risen. And as long as they could maintain face, the 13th Tower wouldn't mind accepting the world's second half-emperor realm sword cultivator to join them. In fact, both sides could even play out a play. How difficult would it be for the heaven-splitting sword sect Qin Yu to be hunted down by the 13th Tower? True Emperor Cheongji took a deep breath and bitterly smiled. Since Sect Master Qin has seen through everything, I have nothing to say. What do you want to do? But there is one point that I must remind Sect Master Qin. In the end, I am a true sovereign. If Sect Master Qin thinks that you can play with me in the palm of your hand and send me away as you please, then you are wrong. A true sovereign cannot be easily humiliated. As he spoke these last words, his eyes were firm. This was the final bottom line and pride of a true sovereign. Qin Yu glanced at him. True Emperor Cheongji is worrying too much. My sect does not have such thoughts. You and I can work together for a win-win situation. There is no need for us to mutually destroy each other. He lifted a hand. First, regarding the secrets on my body, I ask true Emperor Cheongji to keep them a secret and not reveal any of them. Second, the boundary ring is in my hands and belongs to the heaven-splitting sword sect. It is impossible for me to return it to the 13th tower. Third, I hope that in the future I can obtain true Emperor Cheongji's help just once, and I will not have true Emperor do anything that surpasses the limits of your ability. True Emperor Cheongji's eyes brightened. That's it. Qin Yu nodded. That's right. As long as true Emperor Cheongji swears upon the great Tao and agrees to my 3 requests, I will also vow that after the agreement is reached, I will remove the hidden dangers in your body and return your freedom. Good. Moments later, both sides made their oaths. True Emperor Cheongji cupped his hands together and bid his farewells. Although matters weren't completely resolved and there were still some loose ends that needed to be cleaned up, this was much better than he had expected. The only headache he had was how to explain the problem with the boundary ring. This treasure was personally bestowed to him by the Tower Master. As true Emperor Cheongji left, Qin Yu's expression was calm. He could feel the strength left behind by the little blue lamp lurking within true Emperor Cheongji's body. But if he didn't have to use this strength, it was best not to. Otherwise, it was likely that he would provide clear coordinates to the fragment holder that was chasing after him and hasten their arrival. That would be a true disaster. An existence on the level of a long-lived species could be seen just by looking at Meaty. But the ability that Meaty had revealed in front of Qin Yu was likely less than half of her true abilities, or perhaps even less. He couldn't help but be afraid. Thus, Qin Yu would rather loosen the reins and choose a gentler method to stabilize true Emperor Cheongji so that both sides could reach a consensus. Calming his mind, Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and the sword shadows merged back into one. Baiji was expressionless. 327 also had a calm expression. Qin Yu swept his eyes over the two. He didn't need to explain anything. Bang! The sword shadows instantly accelerated. On this day, countless cultivators in the central, desolate, divine continent looked up in amazement. They could clearly see the terrifying sword shadows that pierced through the heavens. A monstrous sword aura fell down as deep as a prison. Even though they were separated by an immeasurable distance, they still felt their hearts shake with fear. Countless sword cultivators revealed excited expressions. There were even some whose eyes were brimming with tears as they stared at the scene in front of them. In the end, rumors were just rumors. But today, they had finally witnessed with their own eyes the might of an Emperor Realm sword cultivator. We, sword cultivators, have finally reached the Emperor Realm. Even more people set off towards Swallow Mountain. And sword cultivators were only a portion of them. Sword cultivators could jump realms to fight. A half-emperor realm sword cultivator had combat strength comparable to a true emperor, and the birth of any true emperor in the world could shake up the distribution of benefits in the world. This was something that even the great Qin Empire would tacitly acknowledge. Chapter 1757. Emperor realm cultivators deserved such treatment. Moreover, he was the only emperor realm sword cultivator in the world. From a certain point of view, he was even more important than ordinary true emperors. It wasn't just because there were many sword cultivators in the great Qin army. They were the sharpest weapons in the country. It was also because the only Emperor Realm sword cultivator in the world represented a possibility and a future. Heaven-splitting sword sects Qin Yu had become the standard for all sword cultivators in the world. Xianyang, the capital of the Great Qin. As the imperial tutor walked through the largest and most magnificent imperial palace in the world, all the attendants in the palace bowed and paid their respects to this imperial tutor who was deeply trusted by His Majesty and had a high position of power. They expressed their utmost respect. The imperial advisor is here. The Qin emperor was admiring a painting in the hall. The painting depicted a battlefield between two armies. A sword cultivator was charging at the very front, slashing down in the air. The dazzling sword light almost tore through the paper, its sharp aura rippling through the air. And this was only a small part of the painting. When one looked at the painting, one would find that the characters were alive. They killed the enemy or were killed by the enemy. It was as if they had been frozen in this period of time, repeating it over and over again. The imperial advisor entered the hall and bowed. "Greetings, Your Majesty." He stood up and took a few steps forward. Sword cultivators are an indispensable part of the Qin army. The Qin emperor nodded. The imperial advisor and I share the same opinion. Sword cultivators have unparalleled killing power and are a trump card in hand. But if they are not controlled well, they can hurt themselves. The imperial advisor thought for a moment. "I understand Your Majesty's worries, but I believe that sword cultivators can still be used at the moment. After all, even if they have unparalleled killing power comparable to a true emperor, they are not." The Qin emperor put down the painting and took a sip of tea. "Do you have a plan, imperial advisor?" The imperial advisor bowed. "I'm going to swallow mountain again to help Your Majesty." The Qin emperor put down his teacup and smiled. "Very well. Then I'll have to trouble you to make another trip. Tell the heaven-splitting sword sect that if they can help me achieve my wish, the great Qin will not be stingy with their rewards." As the saying went, thunder, rain, and dew were all gifts from the emperor. The imperial advisor naturally understood the Qin emperor's attitude. "Don't worry, Your Majesty. I know what to do." Sky Bull City. Niu Dingtian couldn't help but let out a long sigh after failing to get anything from Niu Daodu again. In his entire lifetime, he could be said to be unparalleled, and he'd charged through countless mountains of blades and seas of flames. He'd killed unparalleled experts, yet he'd never been in such a sorry state like he was now. However, he could only support his own little grandaunt. What else could he do? Don't talk about hitting him, you can try scolding him. Even though he was the old ancestor of the Niu clan, a true emperor, he could casually scold Niu Daodu's father. But Niu Daodu was different, melancholy, but he still had to do what he had to do. "Niu Dingshan, get out here." Shua. Niu Dingshan, whose arms were big enough to run a horse, trotted over and respectfully bowed. "Old ancestor, please instruct me." "Look after Niu Daodu. Don't let her come out on her own. If anything goes wrong, I'll break your legs." Niu Dingshan quickly expressed his stance. He patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, ancestor." "Humph, you gave birth to a good daughter." The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Niu Dingtian slapped the tall and burly man away. Shua, he vanished from sight. On the other side, Niu Dingshan crawled out from the underbrush. He spat out a mouthful of grass foam, a bitter smile on his face. "Motherf asterisk her. Wasn't this girl's current temper all because you spoiled her? Pah!" He lifted his hand and slapped himself in the face. The bitter smile on his face deepened. Since he had cursed the old ancestor, he couldn't save this slap. At this time, Niu Dingshan's complexion changed. "Daodu!" He turned and left. He smashed through the door and looked at the empty room, his face paling. This damned girl. She had run away. She had run away just like that. Moreover, she had used the treasure that the old ancestor had given her. As Niu Dingshan thought of this, he wished he could vomit blood. His hands trembled as he stroked his thighs. He really couldn't keep these two big meat sticks. Swallow Mountain. Several hundred sword sects, large and small, had unanimously decided to establish the Sword Sect Alliance. They had pushed out the Heavenly Sword Sect Master Chinyu to become the alliance leader. This was a compromise that they had no other choice. At the very least, they could preserve the name and inheritances of their respective sword sects so that they wouldn't perish. But in truth, all sword cultivators were well aware that the heaven-splitting sword sect had already become the true master of Swallow Mountain. Things were much simpler than they had imagined. There were no waves at all, and everything happened naturally. Chinyu hadn't done anything at all, and yet he had become the true master of the sword path, holy land of Swallow Mountain. He was the true #1 swordsman in the world. In the sparsely populated heaven-splitting sword sect, people like Protector Hu Jiming, Old Sword Cultivator Tai Lin, and the one-armed Zhang Sheshan felt as if they were in a dream. When a man achieved the Tao, his chickens and dogs also ascended to heaven. These words weren't pleasant to hear, but this was the truth. In particular, Hu Jiming was so excited that his lips were twitching. But in this world, there was no such thing as when the conditions were right. Success would follow naturally. Qin Yu was well aware that someone had worked in secret to smooth out this trouble. Only then was the heaven-splitting sword sect able to easily become the master of Swallow Run Mountain. That clan must have worked hard. This could be sensed from the attitude of the South Sea sword sect. And besides that, the old Cow's family was definitely helping in secret. And it should be the great Qin Empire. Qin Yu was waiting. He was waiting for someone to come to him on their own initiative. He had already become exalted of that clan. The game that Meaty had prepared could now begin. As for him, he now had the qualifications to place a chess piece in this game. But no matter what, Qin Yu never imagined that the first one to come looking for him would be Niu Daodu. Moreover, she had used a treasure to forcefully pass through space, ignoring the heaven-splitting sword sect's great array formation and directly breaking into the mountain entrance. If it weren't for Qin Yu sensing her aura and promptly withdrawing his sword, it would have been a joke. "Miss Niu, why have you come?" Just as he asked this, Qin Yu couldn't help but reveal an awkward expression. It was because Niu Daoda's expression was far too aggrieved. Her eyes were filled with grief and disbelief as she looked at Qin Yu. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to stand it. Moreover, Qin Yu knew he was in the wrong, and he had no confidence in this little girl. Seeing her tears about to fall, Qin Yu hurriedly said, "I solemnly apologize for what happened at Skyfall Mountain. But that was because I had no other choice. Otherwise, with my status, let alone seizing the great Tao, I would have been killed as soon as I went." Niu Daodu wiped away her tears. "Then you also lied to me. Qin Yu, how good have I been to you? You great liar." This was truly embarrassing, because in front of Niu Daodu, the great liar Qin Yu truly lived up to his name. As a man, he had to admit to his mistakes. Qin Yu deeply sighed. "I was wrong. Miss Niu, what must I do in order for you to forgive me? As long as I can do it, I will not decline." "Really?" Looking at Niu Daodu across from him, her eyes instantly brightened. There was no longer any trace of her previous grief. Qin Yu couldn't help but rub his face. He had been too careless. "You are a man. You are the solemn sect master of the heaven-splitting sword sect, the #1 sword cultivator in the world. Qin Yu, are you not going to keep your word?" Qin Yu's lips twitched. "Miss Niu, please speak." Niu Daodu said, "It's very simple. I want to stay in the heaven-splitting sword sect. As long as you agree to this, I can let bygones be bygones." Before Qin Yu could speak, a flustered and exasperated roar exploded in his ears. "Impossible. I will never agree to this." Shua. Niu Dingtian rushed in, his eyes wide. Niu Daodu subconsciously shrank back. Then she revealed an angry expression. She clenched her teeth and said, "Old ancestor, why are you here? Are you done yet? Can you stop haunting me like a ghost?" Niu Dingtian nearly fainted. He thought, "You smelly girl, don't you know what's good for you? I am trying to save you. If I let you continue like this, you will lose your little life." His face darkened and he clenched his teeth. "It looks like your father's legs won't be able to be kept. Nyo Daodu said, "You can do whatever you want, but I won't leave." She anxiously stared at Chinyu. "You said that as long as I make a request, you will do it. Now that I have said it, you can't let the old ancestor take me away." Chinyu bitterly smiled. He looked at Nyo Dingtian. "Senior Nyo, how about letting her stay here for 2 days? Don't worry, it will be fine." He said these last words because he had vaguely sensed some of Nyo Dingtian's thoughts. It reassured him. After Ruru left, Chinyu dared to say these words. Otherwise, if Nyo Daodu ran over like this, she would definitely suffer a little. Nyo Dingtian said, "If Daodu stays here, we won't be able to continue acting." Chinyu said, "It's fine. Just be careful. Don't let her be discovered." Nyo Daodu hurriedly said, "I will be very obedient. I will absolutely not cause trouble. Old ancestor, if you don't agree, I will really be angry. Don't expect me to forgive you so easily." At this moment, Nyo Dingtian suddenly frowned. Opposite him, Chinyu also sensed something. He said to Nyo Daodu, "I will send you to a fun place. Go in and stay for a while." With a flick of his sleeves, he sent her into the mystic realm of the Sword Peak. In the next moment, Chinyu lifted a hand and a gap quietly appeared in the heaven-opening sword sect's great protective array. Shua, the imperial scholar, appeared. He cupped his hands together and smiled. "Congratulations, Sect Master Qin, for completing an unprecedented undertaking. You have unified Swallow Mountain and become the #1 sword cultivator of the present age." Chinyu said, "Thank you, Imperial Scholar." He reached out a hand and said, "Imperial Scholar, Senior Nyo, since everyone is here, let us sit down and speak." Since everyone was gathered here, they were well aware of each other's thoughts. There was no need to hide anything. As the host and guests sat down, Chinyu went straight to the point. "Swallow Mountain has gone so smoothly. I must thank the two of you for your help. This is a good beginning for our cooperation." The Imperial Scholar said, "Sect Master Qin is a straightforward person, and I appreciate that. Then, I will represent Great Qin to express our stance. That clan has existed for a long time. It is time for them to disappear." Nyo Dingtian nodded. "I share the same stance as the Imperial Scholar." Chinyu smiled. "My status as an exalted is not a problem. Since everyone has the same goal, we can discuss a plan." Chapter 1758. 327 had a complex look in her eyes. She didn't know why she was hesitating at this time, but when she discovered that a true sovereign had arrived at Swallow Mountain and was preparing to report to the Patriarch, she did indeed have such emotions. Monitoring the heaven-splitting sword sect's Qin, you wasn't just empty talk. To benefit oneself, one must first sharpen one's tools. The Patriarch had given 327 a treasure to rely on. Its function was simple. It could sense powerful auras descending in the surrounding area. Now, there were 3 in Swallow Mountain. 327 took a deep breath and suppressed these emotions that shouldn't have existed. Then, she sent a message to the clan. After doing this, she put away the sensing treasure and returned to her room. For a time, she was lost in thought. During this period of time, she had been at the heaven-splitting sword sect and hadn't had much contact with Chinyu. But for some unknown reason, in this strange place, 327 felt an unprecedented peace of mind. It was as if this was her home. Was this also the influence of the great Tao? 327 didn't know, but she began to feel that things weren't so simple. On another side, the Patriarch was in seclusion. When he received 327's message, a sharp light shined in his eyes. 2 mysterious true sovereigns had arrived at Swallow Mountain to visit the heaven-splitting sword sect's Chinyu. In truth, this wasn't unexpected. After all, he was the only half-sovereign sword cultivator in the world, an existence with killing strength comparable to a true sovereign. To be able to touch upon the circle of true sovereigns was a simple matter. but for two true sovereigns to visit on their own initiative, and two of them at that, this was strange. In the end, Qin Yu wasn't a true sovereign. The patriarch couldn't help but frown. At this time, surprise flashed in his eyes. He flipped his hand and took out a messenger object. He probed it with his divine sense. After several breaths of time, he put it away, a thoughtful look on his face. The one sending the message was Qin Yu. The content was as follows: the imperial scholar of the Qin Empire and Niu Dingtian have come together to visit the heaven-splitting sword sect. It was brief and didn't explain in detail, but this message in itself represented a kind of attitude. Qin, you didn't plan on hiding this matter from the patriarch. The first thought that came to the clan leader's mind was that the 327 had been discovered, but soon he suppressed this thought. This was because what he gave 327 was not an ordinary treasure. Even a true sovereign realm cultivator would not be able to sense its existence. Unless 327 voluntarily confessed, the possibility of being discovered was very small. Soon, the clan leader stood up, his brows unfurrowed. All guesses couldn't compare to seeing it with his own eyes. Shua, he took a step forward, and his figure instantly disappeared. Heaven-splitting sword sect. Qin Yu glanced at the imperial preceptor and Niu Dingtian. He raised his hand and made a gesture. This sect appreciates Lord Imperial Preceptor's good intentions. Although the heaven-splitting sword sect has become the leader of the Sword Cultivator Alliance, this sect has no intention of changing the current situation of sword cultivators. Imperial Preceptor, please report back to His Majesty and explain this to our sect. As for Senior Niu, I've already said that young Lady Niu Daodu isn't here. Your actions were inappropriate due to your anxiety, so I won't hold it against you. However, I hope that Senior Niu can conduct yourself with dignity and not be overbearing. Nation Master didn't say anything. Niu Dingtian sneered. Qin Yu, let's get straight to the point. Don't be so secretive. I don't know what you want to do, but Niu Daodu is the future of my Niu family. If you dare to touch her, I won't let you off. These words were spoken with such sincerity that they simply surpassed the boundaries of acting. Qin Yu looked at old Niu and thought to himself, is this what you're thinking in your heart? Take this chance to remind me. Shua, the patriarch appeared out of thin air, his face expressionless. I want to know just what you plan to do. Niu Dingtian, you won't let my clan's exalted rest. He cupped his hands together. Imperial Preceptor, it's been a long time. The Imperial Preceptor smiled and cupped his hands together. When you were at Skyfall Mountain, I was delayed by other matters, so I didn't go and join in on the fun. Patriarch, you are still as elegant as ever. He glanced at Qin Yu from the corner of his eyes, a bright smile on his face. Qin Yu's face stiffened. He stood up and cupped his hands together. Patriarch, why have you come? The Patriarch said, I suddenly thought of something and came to speak with Sect Master. I didn't think I would run into such a lively scene. He smiled and said, I hope Sect Master doesn't blame me for being presumptuous. Qin Yu shook his head. That's fine. Today, the Heaven-Splitting Sword Sect is welcoming 3 true sovereigns at the same time. If the 3 of you do not mind, I will immediately order for a banquet to be prepared for the 3 true sovereigns. Niu Dingtian snorted angrily and stood up. Forget it. I can't afford to drink the wine of your heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect. Qin Yu, let me warn you again. Stay away from Niu Daodu in the future. Otherwise this old man will not be polite. Shua. He left directly, breaking the protective formation of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect with a single punch, causing the ringing of swords to resound throughout the entire Yan Ran Mountain. Countless swordsmen were watching. When the heaven-splitting sword sect had just become the leader of the Swordsman Alliance, Niu Dingtian's actions were clearly humiliating the heaven-splitting sword sect. The Imperial Master stood up with a smile. Niu Dingtian has always been impatient. Please don't mind him, Sect Master Qin. I will take my leave now. Nodding to the patriarch, he turned around and followed the gap in the formation that Niu Dingtian had broken with his fist. He then left the heaven-splitting sword sect. Humph! Qin Yu's complexion darkened and a cold light rose in his eyes. I've let the patriarch see a joke. Although I am the only sovereign realm sword cultivator in the world, I am still not valued too highly by the true sovereigns. The patriarch smiled. Sect master, you think too much. If you didn't value the heaven-splitting sword sect, how could the imperial master and Niu Dingtian have come to visit? He thought for a moment and said, Did the imperial master come because of the sword cultivators in the army? Qin Yu nodded. Recently, because of my breakthrough, the sword cultivators of the world have been stirred up and their minds are unstable. The imperial master specifically came to remind me that His Majesty Emperor Qin hopes that I can stabilize the hearts of the sword cultivators and not cause unrest in the army. The patriarch said, We should listen to Emperor Qin's opinion. Qin Yu nodded. Patriarch, rest assured that my sect has no plans to use the sword cultivators of the world to do anything, at least not now. The patriarch said, It's good that sect master understands. What about Niu Dingtian? Qin Yu's face darkened. Niu Daodu ran out again. He couldn't find him, so he ran to my sect to ask for him. He has gone too far. He slammed the armrest of his chair in anger. The patriarch said, Sect master really doesn't know where Niu Daodu is. Qin Yu shook his head. Of course I don't know. Otherwise, why would patriarch think that Niu Dingtian would leave so easily? The patriarch nodded. That's right. I don't have any other meaning. I just want to remind sect master to be careful and not leave any loose ends behind. Qin Yu glanced at him. Thank you for the reminder, patriarch. The patriarch flipped his hand and took out a piece of jade. This jade pendant has a portion of the world's destiny sealed within it. I came here today to give it to sect master. With this jade in hand, although I can't say that you will be able to turn misfortunes into blessings, you can still make things a bit smoother. Qin Yu received the jade pendant, a smile on his face. Thank you, patriarch. If there is nothing else, then I won't disturb you any longer. Farewell. The patriarch stood up, cupped his hands together, and left. Qin Yu played with the jade pendant in his hand. After carefully sensing it for a long time, he determined that there was nothing wrong with it. It was indeed a jade pendant that had been consecrated. The leader of that race wasn't bragging. As the spirit of fate, the jade pendant that the race gifted was real and could help change one's luck. Of course, the higher an existence's cultivation was, the greater their involvement with the heavens and earth. The more entangled karma there was, the less obvious the effects would be. If he gave this jade pendant to a junior of his sect, they would truly be able to turn misfortunes into blessings. But right now, what Qin Yu cared about wasn't this jade pendant. Rather, when he held it in his hand, he felt a stirring sensation in his body. It was like a hunter that had been starving for a long time and had finally found a satisfying prey. He couldn't wait to make his move, but now clearly wasn't the time. Suppressing this impulse in his heart, Qin Yu flipped his hand and put away the jade pendant. Thinking for a moment, he stepped forwards and appeared outside courtyard 327. He knocked on the door. Soon, 327 opened the door from inside. It walked out and respectfully bowed. Greetings, Sect Master Qin. 327. I want to take a walk through Swallow Mountain. Come with me. The originally nervous 327 couldn't help but look up at him, a strange expression on her face. Qin Yu looked at her. Is there something you need? 327 shook her head. No. Qin Yu said, then let's go. With a flick of his sleeves, the two of them left heaven, splitting sword sect, and appeared atop a mountain peak. Facing them, strong winds blew against their robes, causing their hair to fly behind them. 327 was a bit nervous. Her first thought was that there was no one here, so no matter what they did, this was a good place. Qin Yu held his hands behind his back, not turning his head. There's no need to be nervous. I just wanted to tell you that this mountain is the highest peak of Swallow Mountain, but no sword sect has ever set up their sect here. Do you know why? 327 clearly couldn't keep up with Qin Yu's thoughts. She shook her head in a daze. Qin Yu glanced at her. In truth, I don't know either. 327. She suddenly felt that the smiling Qin Yu in front of her had become unreal. The one and only Emperor Realm sword cultivator in the world. A peak expert who could fight a true emperor was like this in private? Moreover, even if this was Qin Yu's true appearance, why would he reveal it in front of her? It had to be known that she was a member of that clan, and the patriarch had sent her here. Although it was Qin Yu's request, it was impossible for him not to have guessed that she was following him on a monitoring mission. Today, the patriarch had suddenly arrived. 327 was a little confused. Qin Yu lifted a finger. Swallow Mountain is filled with sword sects, but it isn't just about cultivating the sword. There are also many mountain plains and many cities built there. Many people live here. In that direction, there is an eastern sword city. It's very big, and it's one of the most bustling places in Yanran Mountain. Let's go there today. 327 couldn't help but ask, hasn't sect Master Qin been in seclusion recently? Qin Yu smiled. There is a limit to the road of cultivation. I don't need to say this, right? What's more, sometimes it's better to stay close to life and relax for a while. Sometimes it's better to cultivate. Without giving 327 a chance to ask any more questions, Qin Yu took a step forward and turned into a sword shadow, whistling away. However, this time he had clearly restrained his aura and didn't reveal the sword aura pressure that an Emperor Realm sword cultivator should have. 327 could only follow behind, looking at the back of the figure in front of her with a puzzled expression. An hour later, Eastern Sword City came into view. Qin Yu landed and turned around, saying, "Let's walk there." 327 nodded. She had already thought it through. As long as she stayed by Qin Yu's side and knew his whereabouts, everything else wasn't important. Eastern Sword City's name was prefixed with the word sword, and it was a symbol of status in itself. Rumor has it that tens of thousands of years ago, a powerful sword cultivator appeared in this city. He was known as the enlightened master of the Eastern Sword, and his sword Dao was exceedingly high. After his death, he fell here and left behind a sword Dao inheritance. Whoever can obtain it will have great luck, and their future achievements will be limitless. At the city gate, an old man's spittle flew in all directions as he spoke, his hands dancing in joy. From the looks of it, he seemed to have seen it with his own eyes. The inheritance left behind by the enlightened master of the Eastern Sword was definitely in Eastern Sword City. A group of people surrounded him, and a few youngsters laughed and teased him from time to time. "Old Dong, you're bragging again. The enlightened master of the Eastern Sword has a bloodline descendant. So how can he leave his sword Dao inheritance to us?" That's right. You old man, you tricked us like this back then, causing me to wander around the city for a few days. Who said it wasn't? Old Dong still owes me a drink even now. I must have been blind to have been tricked by him into paying the bill. Old Dong's face flushed red after being exposed. Shoo, shoo, shoo. A bunch of little bastards who can't appreciate my kindness. The opportunity is right in front of you, but you don't know how to cherish it. That's your own problem. Another round of jeering. Old Dong is angry out of humiliation. Ha ha ha, let's go. Let's not argue with him. The city gates are open. Today, I'm going to the Eastern Gate Sword Gym to listen to a lecture. I heard that the lecturer today is a ruler realm sword cultivator. Stop bragging. How can you believe the words of the Eastern Gate Sword Gym? A ruler realm sword cultivator? It's already good enough if there's a Saint Realm sword cultivator. Qin Yu stood in the crowd and glanced at old Dong, who was babbling and had a face full of indignation. "Let's go." He brought 327 with him and followed the crowd into the city. At this moment, Qin Yu frowned slightly. Bang! A few youngsters near 327 cried out in pain as they bumped into each other, rolling on the ground like gourds. The most unlucky one had his face stuck to the ground, and 2 of his front teeth were knocked out. He covered his mouth and wailed. 327's gaze fell on Qin Yu's back. Her lips moved, but she didn't say anything. After entering the city gates and heading east, there was a garden full of green vegetables. This wasn't a jingle, but Eastern Sword City's Eastern Main Street was really selling all kinds of spirit herbs. Sword cultivators cultivated the way of the sword, and they had very high requirements for their bodies. Otherwise, if they weren't careful, they might be devoured by their own sword aura. Some of the more powerful sword techniques even had extremely strict requirements for the physical body. Therefore, all kinds of spirit herbs that could nourish the body had always been extremely popular in Swallow Ran Mountain. The various spirit seed sects had a very good impression of Swallow Ran Mountain's sword cultivators. Each and every one of them was a good customer. They were in high demand and sold well. Every year they made a lot of money. Although they said they had become spirits, they were actually more intelligent. Qin Yu even saw a white radish desperately trying to escape from the bamboo basket. Unfortunately, there was a restriction placed on the bamboo basket. If it ran to the mouth of the basket, it would be knocked down. It was obvious that this was 327's first time seeing it. She stared with wide eyes, entranced. Qin Yu walked over and pointed. "How much is the radish?" Soon he walked back and threw the radish to 327, who was at a loss. "This is for you. Consider it as thanks for agreeing to accompany me for a walk today." Reality proved that just buying radishes wasn't enough. There were also oranges, beans, and melons. But 327's favorite food was candied hawthorn. The immortal craftsmanship was exquisite, and it tasted wonderful. When she bit into it, the sweet and sour mixed together perfectly. Qin Yu nodded as he ate. 327 ate 3 skewers in a single go. Her face flushed red, and she earnestly waved her hand to indicate that she was full. Qin Yu smiled and nodded. He bought several more skewers and held them in his hands. The candied hawthorn vendor was all smiles. "Dear customer, you are far too good to this little sister. Since you bought too much, I will give you a free skewer. Come back after you finish eating." Qin Yu paused. He looked at 327. "Do the 2 of us look alike?" The vendor said, "You don't look alike, but your temperaments are similar. I can tell that you are close. Aren't the 2 of you brother and sister? If so, then I must say that I spoke too much. I hope dear customer doesn't take offense." Qin Yu smiled and turned to leave. 327 also heard the vendor's words. She frowned. Although this person's craftsmanship was good, he had poor eyesight. She was a member of that tribe. The number of people in that tribe was fixed. Since a long time ago, it had never increased or decreased. Brother and sister? He actually dared to say that. Chapter 1759. The facts proved that 3,327 who said she was full after eating 3 skewers was indeed lying. This was because most of the candied Haws Qin Yu bought later had entered her stomach. Although Qin Yu didn't reveal any emotions at all, 327, who was walking behind him, was still annoyed. Just what was wrong with him? She had actually revealed this appearance in front of Qin Yu. As she stared at Qin Yu's back, 3,327 subconsciously bit her lips, a bit absent-minded for a time. Bang! She bumped into Qin Yu's back. "Ah, Sect Master Qin, I'm really sorry. I didn't pay attention just now." 3,327 waved her hands. Her face flushed red. Qin Yu turned and smiled. "It's just a bump, it's fine." He patted his stomach. I'm a bit hungry, let's go eat. He chose a position with a good view and had the waiter serve several of his specialty dishes. Qin Yu gestured with his hand. What are you standing for? Sit. 3327 hesitated for a moment and then sat across from him. The restaurant served dishes very quickly. Not long after the two sat down, the hot and cold dishes had all been served. According to the waiter's recommendation, they bought a special wine from Eastern Sword City. As for the taste, it was just so. After drinking 2 mouthfuls, Qin Yu picked up his chopsticks and picked up some food. Come eat. 3327 couldn't understand Qin Yu's thoughts. Her originally calm heart couldn't help but feel apprehensive. This was because Qin Yu's performance today was too strange. He had pulled her out to relax and even ran into a restaurant to eat. Was he here specifically to enjoy the pleasure of eating fish and dragons? Or did he have some other purpose? Looking at Qin Yu calmly eating and drinking across from her, 3327 felt that this was not the first reason. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. She felt a bit panicked before leaving Long Mountain region. The elder had found her in private and told her some things. 3327 originally thought that the elder was overthinking things. After all, he was a dignified Emperor Realm sword cultivator, a powerful existence that stood at the peak of the world. How could he have the mind to pay attention to matters between men and women? But today's events were hard to explain. Could it be that the elder was right? As she thought of this, 3327 became increasingly uneasy. Qin, you could sense the discomfort she revealed. He laid down his chopsticks and said, The reason I brought you out today is purely because I want to go out for a stroll. Don't think too much about it. 327 felt a little more at ease, but he still shook his head. She certainly couldn't admit that she already viewed him as a pervert in her heart. Qin Yu said, 327, for a period of time from now on, you will be following me. Do you mind if I temporarily give you a name? After all, it feels a little weird to call you that. 327 hesitated for a moment before saying, Sure. Then I'll call you Little Seven. Qin Yu faintly smiled. My sect comes from the Western Desolate, so I'm not too clear about the internal affairs of the Central Desolate Divine Continent. For instance, that clan. Miss Xiaoqi, can you tell me something about your tribe? Of course, I'll only tell you the basics. If it involves secrets, feel free to hide them. 327 glanced at Qin Yu. His expression was calm. He rapped the table. Right now, I am exalted of that clan. If I want to understand you, that shouldn't be too much, right? Miss Xiaoqi, even if the patriarch were here, I could still ask you this question. Sect Master Qin is right. 327 thought for a moment. But I don't know what Sect Master wants to know, Qin Yu said. That's simple. Miss Xiaoqi, you can start from the matters around you. Just say whatever you think of. He smiled. I'm curious. Just who were your parents that they could give birth to such a beautiful girl like you? 327's eyes darkened. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, My parents died when I was young. I didn't live to see the day when my clan was immortal. Qin Yu said, I'm sorry, I've touched upon something that hurts you. 327 shook his head. Sect Master Qin should know the situation of my clan. Even if my parents were still alive, they still might not remember me. There was a vacant look in her eyes. This is because my memories of the past are already very blurry. I can only remember a vague outline. The people of that clan were nameless and didn't exist in the samsara of the heavens and earth. They were nearly immortal and indestructible. But once they were severely wounded and revived, what came back to life was only their mortal body and bloodline. Their consciousness had already been annihilated. This was the same as giving birth to a brand new consciousness within their mortal body. They seemed alive, but they were also dead. Without a doubt, 327 had encountered this sort of situation before. Qin Yu said, Besides your parents, does Miss Xiaoqi have any other relatives? 327 shook his head. I am an orphan girl. She subconsciously furrowed her eyebrows. Qin Yu immediately changed the topic. He asked her a few more questions about that clan. At the same time, he asked some questions about 327. At the very least, he had a rough idea of what was going on. Only then would he be able to make targeted preparations for his investigation. He didn't eat much and drank a great deal of wine. Most of it entered his stomach. Have you eaten? Come, let's take a stroll around Eastern Sword City. There are many fun places to visit. Just as he was about to pay the bill, he heard a sound coming from upstairs. Bang! The window was smashed apart. A young sword cultivator was struck down and spat out a mouthful of blood. Cheong-ching! With a cry of alarm, a female cultivator flew over from the street and landed beside this person. How are you? The young man called Cheong-ching squeezed out a smile. Rongjiang, why are you here? I'm fine. Just as he finished speaking, he spat out another mouthful of blood. Don't speak. Eat this pill and hurry up and heal yourself. A group of youths stood in front of the broken window. One of them sneered, Hold on. Rongjiang, that pill in your hand is something our Eastern Sword sect gives to our disciples to heal themselves. How can you give it to an outsider? Cheong-ching wiped the corner of his mouth and shook his head. I'm fine, really. Rongjiang, put away the pill. Rongjiang clenched her teeth. I'm fine. If I tell you to eat it, then eat it. I will deal with it myself. Humph. Rongjiang, do you think your father is still an elder? Let me tell you, the current Swallow Mountain has changed. You can give this pill to him. But if Cheong-ching dares to eat it, I will beat him until he spits it out. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try. The youths by the window roared with laughter. Qin Yu frowned slightly. Across from him, 327 said, Sect Master Qin, do you know this woman? Qin Yu nodded. We met once, not really. When he first came to Swallow Mountain, he had helped a poor old sword cultivator fulfill his wish to enter Skyfall Mountain. Rongjiang was the female sword cultivator responsible for collecting immortal money outside the mountain gate. Even though he had only met her once, he could tell that she had a good temperament. Moreover, why did today's matter seem to be related to the heaven-splitting sword sect? Otherwise, where did the so-called Swallow Mountain change come from? Because now he was the sky of Swallow Mountain. At this moment, a lazy, charming voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Little Qin, you're in luck. Eastern Sword City does have some good stuff. As long as you bring it to me, I'll play with you for a day. What do you think? It was the big white goose. TSK, little Qin, you are quite bold. Little Meaty has already left, and you still dare to call me by my nickname. Or are you already impatient? You are so bad. As long as you help me obtain what is hidden in Eastern Sword City, I will let you know just where the name Big White Goose came from. Qin Yu remained calm. With a thought, the blue sun and purple moon in his soul space sped up, opening up the sun and moon force field. Cough, it's big sister Feifei. Before little Meaty left, she specifically told me to take care of her while she was gone. She said that she had some matters to attend to and that she would thank you when she returns. Bai Feifei sneered. Boy, stop trying to scare me. Little Meaty doesn't even know that I can still wake up. Humph, I am no longer a perfect, long-lived species. My various abilities have been greatly reduced. Although I am still in a sealed state, in terms of life, I am still perfect. So, you had best cooperate with me. Otherwise, if I am not satisfied, you will suffer. Qin Yu's heart sank. Indeed, these beautiful existences with sweet voices were all old monsters that had lived for countless years. They were not easy to scare. What should he do? If he was threatened by Feifei today, then Qin Yu's situation would be far from good. Perhaps he would be controlled by her, and even become a puppet that had no choice but to obey her orders. Qin Yu took a deep breath and clenched his teeth. By Feifei, you dare to touch me? Little thing, you are courting death. The blood vessels in Qin Yu's left hand swelled up, like a fierce worm about to drill out from his flesh. 327 instantly sensed something. He frowned. Sect Master Qin? Qin Yu shook his head. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. He looked down at his left hand, his eyes icy cold. By Feifei, if you really had a method to deal with me, you wouldn't have chosen to discuss it with me. The first thing you would have done would have been to directly swallow me up. So stop bluffing. Otherwise, I guarantee that I will tell Little Meat everything that happened today. Once she returns, you will definitely feel very uncomfortable. His left hand still had a fierce appearance. It trembled like a wild beast, ready to eat someone at any moment. Qin, you could clearly feel the rage and suppression in Bai Feifei's heart at this time. Humph! You smelly brat, you've got guts! Bai Feifei coldly snorted, changing her tone. Then let's make a deal. You help me obtain what is hidden in Eastern Sword City, and I promise you that I will obediently sleep in the future and will never make things difficult for you again. Qin Yu's eyes were cloudy and uncertain. He clenched his teeth and said, swear it. Bai Feifei angrily roared. Qin Yu, don't go too far. Fine, I can swear that if I violate it, the great Tao will collapse. Qin Yu said, deal. Shua. The strange appearance of his left hand instantly disappeared. Little Qin, big sister will wait for your good news. Mwahaha. She blew him a kiss and then vanished. How, woman? Qin Yu clenched his fists. He looked up at 327 and said, it's just a small problem. It's fine now. 327 hesitated for a moment and then nodded, not speaking. And after Bai Feifei's sudden disturbance, the situation on the street had changed once more. The young man by the window blocked Jiang Rong's path, a sneer on his face. I said that Qing can't go anywhere today. Since he invited us to drink, how can we not let our guests drink to their heart's content? That's right, that's the reason. Qing, you're the one who doesn't know how to speak. You've offended Brother Jiangda. Hurry up and kowtow to apologize. What kind of man are you to hide behind a woman? Moreover, are you sure that Miss Jiangrong can protect you right now? Don't provoke trouble for her. Qing struggled to stand up. Jiangrong, you can leave. I'm really fine. He clenched his teeth. Jiangda, I was wrong before. I offended you with my words, but I've already paid the price. Let her go. Jiangda said, you privately gave a sect pill to an outsider and violated the rules of the sect. Jiangrong, even if you are my cousin, there is no way to let this matter rest. Now, even if you want to leave, it's too late. He took a step back. Men, take Jiangrong and bring her back to the sect to be dealt with. Shua. With the sound of breaking air, several black-clothed sword cultivators appeared on the long street. The one leading them had an expressionless face, his eyes cold. Jiangrong, don't put up any meaningless resistance. Come back with us. Qing's complexion changed. She quickly raised her hand. The pill is here. I will immediately return it. The black-clothed sword cultivator frowned. Jiangda sneered. What are you waiting for? The leader waved his hand. Take her. Little Qin, there are clues on this woman. Hurry up and bring her back. Bai Feifei's excited voice suddenly sounded out. Qin Yu's eyes sharpened. He stood up and said to 327, Miss Seven, wait here for a moment. Shua. Qin Yu directly appeared in front of Jiangrong, shielding her behind him. The black-clothed sword cultivator that rushed over had an icy look in his eyes. The Eastern Sword Sect is handling matters. Unrelated people, please leave. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. With several dull bangs, the several people that rushed over were sent flying away at an even faster speed. They tumbled to the ground. Whoosh! On the long street, everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. In Eastern Sword City, there was actually someone that dared to attack a sword cultivator from the Eastern Sword Sect. Although the current Eastern Sword Sect was no longer as extravagant as its ancestors, it was still one of Swallow Mountain's 10 sword sects. As the saying went, a starving camel was still larger than a horse. Its background could not be underestimated. Moreover, everyone knew that the Eastern Sword Sect was a vassal sect of the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect. Although this relationship had been severed when the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect was destroyed, it was said that during this period of time, the Eastern Sword Sect had used some unknown method to reconnect the two sides and restore their vassal relationship. As for the Heaven-Opening Sword Sect, there was no need to mention its current status in Swallow Mountain. Looking at Chinyu, everyone present had the same thought pop up in their hearts. This person was definitely going to be in deep trouble. Jiangda took a step back. He said in a low voice, "Who are you? Why are you interfering in the internal affairs of my Eastern Sword Sect?" As he spoke, he winked at his companion. Seeing that he had already sent a message, he immediately calmed down. Qin Yu ignored him. He turned and cupped his hands together. "Miss Jiang Rong, do you still remember me?" Jiang Rong revealed a puzzled expression. She thought for a moment before remembering. "It's you." She bit her lips. "Fellow Taoist, I appreciate your good intentions, but you should hurry up and leave." "Humph. You injured someone from my Eastern Sword Sect, and you still want to leave?" Whoosh! With the sound of breaking air, a middle-aged sword cultivator appeared above them, a powerful sword aura surging around him. Chapter 1760. Jiang Yunshan, Eastern Sword Sect's Grand Elder, a sovereign realm sword cultivator. It seems that today's matter will not be settled peacefully. The crowd exclaimed in surprise. Jiang Rong's complexion changed. She stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Great Elder. There is a hidden story behind today's events. I ask that you investigate this thoroughly. Secrets." Jiang Yunshan sneered. "Jiang Rong, you colluded with outsiders and injured your own sect's disciple. The evidence is conclusive, and you still dare to say such things in front of this old man." Jiang bowed respectfully. "Great Elder is right. We can all testify." His eyes were filled with joy. Did he really think that what happened today was his own decision? Too childish. After all, Jiang Rong was the Jiang family's direct bloodline. Without permission, how could he dare to make a move? Jiang Rong's heart sank. She had already discovered the first elder's attitude. Shock and anger appeared in her eyes. "Fellow Taoist, hurry up and escape. Today's target is me, so don't let yourself get caught up in it." Jiang Yunshan waved his sleeves. "He won't be able to escape. He is courting death for injuring my Eastern Sword Sect's disciple." Whoosh! The sword breath pierced through the air. Puff! But before it could strike Qin Yu's body, the sword breath burst like a bubble and dissipated. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Qin Yu was expressionless. "You want to kill me?" When Jiang Yunshan's gaze locked onto him, Jiang Yunshan's face turned pale. His forehead was instantly covered with beads of sweat, and he couldn't suppress his fear as it surged out from the bottom of his heart. He clenched his teeth and shouted, "Where did this wild cultivator come from? Just because he has some strength, he dares to behave atrociously in Eastern Sword City. I'm warning you, our Eastern Sword Sect is a vassal of the Heaven-Splitting Sword Sect. If you dare to be impudent here, you'd better consider the consequences." Qin Yu was expressionless. "Then I really want to know what the consequences are." Jiang Yunshan raised his hand and pressed down. With a loud bang, Jiang Yunshan's entire body was smashed into the ground, unable to move. Jiangda was dumbfounded. He widened his eyes and suddenly shivered. Fear appeared on his face. "What happened today has nothing to do with me." Before he could finish speaking, Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and sent him flying away. He was just a little thing that wasn't even a ruler. He couldn't be bothered to waste time with him. Pata! Jiang collapsed on the ground and became a pile of mud. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The long street was deathly silent. Countless people widened their eyes in disbelief. How did things suddenly develop to this stage? They were the Eastern Sword Sect. Moreover, behind the Dong Jianzong stood the leader of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect, a sword path master. Jiang Rong's face turned pale. You killed Jiang Da? Fellow Taoist, you're in big trouble. He's an unnamed disciple of a major figure in the heaven-splitting sword sect. We can't let this go easily. A big shot of the heaven-splitting sword sect? Qin Yu revealed a strange expression. He waved his hand and said it's fine. He looked at Jiang Rong, trying to find something wrong with her. Why did Bai Feifei want her? But there was no doubt that Jiang Rong was involved in what Bai Feifei had said was hidden in Eastern Sword City. For Bai Feifei to be so concerned about it, to the point of risking being pursued by Mimi, it had to be extremely valuable. And Qin Yu would absolutely not let her obtain it. That's right, from the start. He had made Bai Feifei swear an oath just to numb her. Qin Yu had no intention of compromising. Right now, Bai Feifei could only bluff and scare him. But if she obtained Jiang Rong and then obtained the hidden thing in Eastern Sword City, then it would be hard to say. Qin Yu was not so stupid as to dig a hole for himself and bury himself. As for Bai Feifei's oath, Qin Yu did not believe a word of it. A long-lived species in the eternal realm, swearing on the great Tao. Was she kidding? Eastern Sword Sect. Sect Master Jiang Qing was entertaining several guests from the big sword sect. Although the Swordsman Alliance had been established, everyone was in the same league. But even though he said that that wasn't the case, the close relationship between them still existed. And now, the Eastern Sword Sect had regained its status as a vassal of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect. That alone was enough. The usually arrogant big sword sect now lowered their stance and personally came to visit the Eastern Sword Sect. The heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect was now Yan Ran Mountain Sky. Who dared to disrespect it? Sect Master Jiang, with the support of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect, the Eastern Sword Sect's rise is imminent. Restoring its former glory is just around the corner. In the future, we should get closer to each other. That's right. In the past, when my sect did things improperly, I asked Sect Master Jiang to be magnanimous and not lower yourself to our level. In the future, we will be friends of the Eastern Sword Sect. If Sect Master Jiang has any instructions, please feel free to speak. Several big sword sect elders spoke up, their faces full of smiles. Jiang Qing smiled without speaking. His heart was filled with joy. He thought to himself, you people probably never imagined that such a day would come. In the past, the Eastern Sword Sect had been bullied by them. But from now on, all of that would be gone forever. Sending people to approach them on their own initiative and restore their status as a vassal of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect was the best decision he had ever made. At this time, an Eastern Sword Sect disciple suddenly ran in, a look of panic on his face. The smug Jiang Qing's complexion darkened. Don't you see that I am entertaining guests? What are you panicking for? Sect Master, something has happened. The disciple was panic-stricken. Jiang Qing frowned. Speak, what is going on? Someone is causing trouble in Eastern Sword City. Great Elder went to stop them, but was suppressed instead. The main hall suddenly fell into silence. Jiang Qing's face was completely gloomy. Someone was causing trouble in his own territory. Yet Great Elder was suppressed instead? Shameful, completely shameful. Especially when his gaze swept over the several big sword sect elders in the main hall. Jiang Qing's heart became more and more furious. Slamming his hand on the table, he stood up. Impudent! Where did this bastard come from? He actually dares to cause trouble in Eastern Sword City. Everyone, please wait a moment. I will go deal with this matter. Several big sword sect elders exchanged glances, and stood up at the same time. Sect Master Jiang, we will go with you. That's why I'm here. If there are other problems, I can help. Daring to cause trouble in Eastern Sword City means he is our enemy. Perceiving the flattery in these people's words, Jiang Qing's expression softened. Even if someone was causing trouble, as long as they were a vassal of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect, no one dared to disrespect them. All right, then I'll have to trouble you all to come with me. He brought them along as a precaution, in case they failed miserably at a simple task. As the sect master, Jiang Qing's strength was definitely stronger than the Great Elder, but his strength was limited. If he were to be suppressed again, then he would really lose a lot of face. Xiao, xiao, xiao. Jiang Qing and the others whistled away, quickly arriving at Eastern Sword City and finding the place of trouble. Several sovereign realm sword cultivators came together, their imposing manner shocking to the extreme. Sharp sword chi cut through the air, emitting ear-piercing sounds. It's Sect Master Jiang Qing. Who are these people beside him? Their auras are so strong. I recognize them. The one on the left is the Great Elder of the Earth Treasury Sword Sect. The one on the right is the Great Elder of the Sea King Sword Sect. I've heard that the surrounding great sword sects have been showing goodwill to the Eastern Sword Sect recently, trying to improve their relationship. No wonder there are so many people here. This person must be in big trouble. Shua. Jiang Qing's eyes fell on the suppressed Great Elder, then on Jiang, who was lying on the ground. His face was ashen. Arrogant. No matter who you are, I will make you pay the price. Qing Yu looked at him, expressionless. You don't know me? Jiang Qing sneered. Don't try to use your background and connections. In the current Swallow Ran Mountain, no one has a greater background than our Eastern Sword Sect. His eyes were ice cold. No matter who you are, boy, I will tell you that you are finished. No one can save you. Qin Yu raised a hand and rubbed his eyebrows. This Hu Jiming fellow, he had been too arrogant recently. Now, all the trivial matters of the heaven-splitting sword sect were left to him to handle. How could a vassal sword sect have them? But what kind of people did they choose? Jiang Rong knelt on the ground. Sect Master, the Great Elder and Jiang did join forces to deliberately frame me. I ask that you uphold justice for this disciple. Jiang Qing's eyes were ice cold. Even if the Great Elder did not act appropriately in this matter, can you ally with outsiders to harm the Great Elder? Jiang Rong, I used to think that you were a sensible person, but it looks like I was wrong. Men, bring Jiang Rong back to the sect to be dealt with. First, I will suppress this arrogant boy. Qin Yu was too lazy to speak with him. He flicked his sleeves. Bang! With a loud bang, Jiang Qing, whose face was gloomy and aloof just a moment ago, was directly sent flying. He crashed into the ground and rolled on the ground, blood gushing out from his nose and mouth. His appearance was miserable to the extreme. This scene caused the complexions of the several big sword sect elders to change. Fear and hesitation appeared in their eyes. When did such a strong person appear in Yanran Mountain? The Eastern Sword Sect Master Jiang Qing wasn't too strong, but for better or worse, he was still a peak sovereign. He hadn't stepped into the three boundaries of heaven, earth, and man, but now he had been casually knocked down with a flick of his sleeves. And this other party didn't seem like he was serious at all. Those who had originally wanted to stand up for the Eastern Sword Sect suddenly hesitated. Some of them had already silently taken half a step back. It wasn't good to casually interfere in today's matters. But this person in front of them, why did he seem a little familiar, as if they had seen him somewhere before? Puff! Jiang Qing spat out a mouthful of blood, his face twisted. You dare to hurt me! Audacious, audacious! He looked at the several big sword sect elders and shouted, Do you still want to watch the show? Today, I will recommend whoever can kill this person and give him a chance to become a vassal of the heaven-splitting sword sect. the several big sword sect elders' complexions changed. This was an extremely heavy bargaining chip. This was a vassal of the heaven-splitting sword sect. As long as they could obtain it, the sect status would rise and there would be endless benefits in the future. Sect Master Jiangqing, this old man will help you. The Earth Bodhisattva Sword Sect's great elder roared and attacked without hesitation. When a sovereign realm sword cultivator attacked, there would be a great commotion. The heaven-splitting sword sect would soon learn of what happened here. In other words, once Sect Master Qin learned of this, he would arrive here to protect the vassal sword sect. Otherwise, who would be willing to work for the heaven-splitting sword sect in the future? There was a risk in attacking now, but compared to the expected benefits, it was worth the gamble. Qin frowned and coldly snorted. The Earth Bodhisattva Sword Sect's great elder stuffily coughed and his face paled. The immortal sword in his hand wailed and struggled free from his grasp. He didn't dare to attack Qin at all. A half-emperor realm sword cultivator was the peak of body and sword cultivators in the world. All sword cultivators were naturally suppressed. When facing Qin, there weren't many who had the qualifications to attack. And this was also the reason why Qin Huang feared Qin. He was well aware of just how terrifying an existence that stood at the peak of a cultivation system was. The Earth Bodhisattva Sword Sect's great elders' eyes widened in horror. He stubbornly stared at Qin and suddenly fell to his knees, kowtowing again and again. His body trembled and he couldn't even speak. This scene caused the long street, which was already dead silent, to become completely silent. Everyone subconsciously held their breaths as they looked at Qin, their eyes filled with shock. No one was stupid. Even with the Earth Bodhisattva Sword Sect's great elder strength, he had nearly suffered a backlash from a single cold snort. Even the immortal sword in his hand was about to rebel. What kind of strength was needed to achieve this? Jiangqing, who had been clamoring to kill Qin, froze in his throat like a chicken or duck that had been grabbed by the neck. He stared straight at Qin. Sea King's Sword Sect's Lu Wui greets the Alliance leader. The Sea King's Sword Sect's great elder knelt on the ground. The other great Sword Sect's elders also reacted and hurriedly knelt down. They knelt because they were afraid. They were afraid that Qin would vent his anger on them and end up like these idiots from the Eastern Sword Sect. As a vassal sword sect, they didn't even know the heaven-splitting sword sect's sect master. They were simply pigs with human heads and a bunch of bastards. Just now they had said that as long as they killed this person, they would help introduce them. This was simply harming people. They were courting death, yet they still wanted to drag them down with them. How hateful! Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, everyone on the street knelt down. It didn't matter if he was a sword cultivator or not, because anyone who lived on Swallow Ran Mountain now had to rely on the heaven-splitting sword sect. And the person in front of them was the one and only Emperor Realm sword cultivator in the world, the heaven-splitting sword sect's sect master, Qin. Everyone's hearts were filled with shock and disbelief. Even Zhongrong was dumbfounded. She knelt on the ground, her mind blank. Qin snorted coldly. This is my first time coming to Eastern Sword City. It's really eye-opening. Do you think you're worthy of being a vassal of the heaven-splitting sword sect? From today onwards, don't mention this matter again. If I find out in the future that you use the heaven-splitting sword sect as a pawn, I won't let you off lightly. Jiangqing's eyes rolled back and she fainted. Today, it seemed that Qin didn't punish them severely. But after today's events, everyone knew that the Eastern Sword Sect had offended the heaven-splitting sword sect. It was easy to imagine their future in Swallow Ran Mountain. It was over. The Eastern Sword Sect was completely finished. Little Qin, it's true that you're putting on a show, but I'm asking you to capture this little girl for me. I'm not here to watch you put on a monkey show. Bai Feifei's voice was still charming, but her meaning was very unkind. Hurry up and do it. Don't delay any longer. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He suddenly raised his hand and pointed. The position of Eastern Sword Sect's sect master, from today onwards, will be held by Jiang Rong. He turned and looked at her. Sect Master Jiang Rong, won't you invite me to your Eastern Sword Sect as a guest? Jiang Rong recovered from her trance and hurriedly nodded. Of course. Sect Master Qin, please. She was now the sect master of the Eastern Sword Sect. It felt like a dream. She pinched herself hard. It hurt. It wasn't a dream. Jiang Rong's eyes were filled with excitement. She never expected that her moment of compassion outside the mountain gate would allow her to reap the rewards she had today. Several big sword sect elders hurried over to congratulate her. Today, Qin Yu's words were final on Swallow Ran Mountain. If he said that Jiang Rong was the new sect master of the Eastern Sword Sect, then this matter was set in stone. Not daring to disturb them, they respectfully bowed to Qin Yu and tactfully retreated. This Jiang Rong's appearance was quite good, especially her figure. It seemed that they would have to be more respectful towards the Eastern Sword Sect in the future. No matter whether or not they guessed correctly, there was nothing wrong with being careful. As for Jiang Qing and the others, no one cared about them anymore. Their fates would surely be miserable. Shua! 327's figure appeared at Qin Yu's side. You've come just in time. Sect Master Jiang Rong has invited us to visit the Eastern Sword Sect. 327 nodded. A moment later, after the Eastern Sword Sect suffered such a great change, after a brief period of panic, everyone revealed joyful expressions. The reason was simple. From today onwards, the Eastern Sword Sect was no longer a vassal of the Heaven-Splitting Sword Sect. But it was clear that the relationship between the two sides had become much closer. No one had any objections to Jiang Rong assuming the position of sect master. After sending away the elders and protectors of the Eastern Sword Sect who had come to pay their respects, Qin Yu took a sip of tea and said, Rong Jiang, the reason I helped you today is because I think you aren't too bad of a person. And secondly, there are other reasons. Chapter 1761. It's here. Jiang Rong's heart chilled. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the sky, and it just so happened that it had fallen on her head. Therefore, there must be something else to this matter. She stood up and respectfully said, Please speak, Alliance Master. Qin Yu said, I want to know if you found the secret hidden in Eastern Sword City. Shua! Jiang Rong jerked her head up in shock. There was no need for more. Just her expression was enough to prove that it was true. Qin Yu's heart shook. Qin Yu, what are you doing? I just want you to capture Jiang Rong and hand her over to me. I don't need you to interfere. Qin Yu ignored by Fei, his expression solemn. This matter is very important to me. I hope you can answer truthfully. Jiang Rong took a deep breath. I should have found it. The inheritance left behind by Sage East Sword is in Eastern Sword City. Qin Yu immediately recalled what he saw at the city gate. Old Dong. Jiang Rong nodded. It seems that Alliance Master has already sensed it. Yes, Old Dong is the guardian of that inheritance. If you pass his test, you can obtain Sage East Sword's inheritance. Qin Yu, I'm warning you, stop your stupid actions now. Bai Fei shouted angrily. Don't try to provoke me. This is the limit of my patience. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He was almost certain that what Bai Fei wanted was Sage East Sword's inheritance. Although he didn't know what use it would have for her, Qin Yu definitely wouldn't let her achieve her wish. And the most direct way to ruin Bai Fei's plan was to find a master for Sage East Sword's inheritance. Little Seven, wait for me here. Qin Yu stood up and grabbed Jiang Rong. Let's go find Old Dong. Shua! The two figures instantly disappeared. Qin Yu. Bai Fei was about to go crazy with anger. Qin Yu was expressionless. In his soul space, the sun and moon fields opened, isolating her roars and threats. Soon, The two appeared outside Eastern Sword City. Old Dong looked up at the two people who had suddenly appeared and frowned. Qin Yu stepped forward. Where is Sage East Sword's inheritance? Old Dong shook his head. Even if you are an Emperor Realm sword cultivator, if you aren't chosen, you don't have the qualifications to obtain the inheritance. Qin Yu lifted a finger. I don't want it. Give the inheritance to her. Jiang Rong's heart shook. She didn't know what was happening, but she still stepped forwards and bowed. Greetings, Senior. Do you still remember me? Old Dong nodded. Of course. In all these years, the Jiang family has only produced 3 people who are qualified to receive Tao Master Dongjin's inheritance. The previous 2 failed, and they were unable to complete this old man's test in their entire lives. You will also fail now. Qin Yu said, If I say she can, then she can. Old Dong frowned. Qin Yu had no expression. Pass it to her. Otherwise, I will draw my sword today and kill you on the spot. Sage East Sword's inheritance will vanish from this world. Jiang Rong's eyes widened even more. As it turned out, it really worked. After hesitating for a while, Old Man Dong nodded his head. Sect Master Qin, promise me one thing, and I'll pass the inheritance to Jiang Rong. Qin Yu said, I will help her become an Emperor Realm sword cultivator. Old Dong laughed heartily. It's a deal. He stood up, and his entire body suddenly began to glow. Qin Yu, this old lady will kill you, you bastard. Bai Feifei completely flipped out. Qin Yu stuffily coughed, his complexion paling. The skin on his left hand instantly cracked, countless tiny cracks appearing. Blood, red, tentacles drilled out from within. Bai Feifei, go crazy! But once the aura of a long-lived species is exposed, you should know what the consequences will be. That's right, I will die, but you will also be suppressed. Moreover, Meaty will not let you off. The blood-red tentacles tumbled about, gradually calming down. Bai Feifei's icy voice sounded out in his mind. Qin Yu, you better remember what happened today. Shua, her aura vanished. Qin Yu's left hand was restored to normal in the blink of an eye. Who? He quietly let out a breath. If he said he was 100% sure of this, then that would be a boast. But Qin Yu could only gamble. He absolutely could not allow himself to become a puppet controlled by Bai Feifei. Luckily, he had succeeded, but the uncertainty of this matter caused Qin Yu to once again experience what it meant to be on tenterhooks. This was the first time since Meaty had left, but it would not be the last. Old Dong's entire body disintegrated, turning into motes of light that submerged into Jiang Rong's body. Her face was filled with shock. It turned out that Old Dong's person was Enlightened Master East, Sword's inheritance. Just this point alone was enough to show how powerful Enlightened Master East Sword was in the past. Perhaps his strength was even greater than what was rumored or recorded. Jiang Rong took a deep breath and bowed. Alliance Master Qin, I have already obtained Enlightened Master East, Sword's inheritance. I can tell you at any time. Qin Yu waved his hand. No need. The inheritance is yours. I do not covet it. Jiang Rong's face was filled with shock. She bowed again. Thank you, Alliance Master Qin. This time, her tone was much more respectful. Clearly, Jiang Rong did not expect that Qin Yu would not take credit for it and would really give her the inheritance. After all, only after obtaining the inheritance did Jiang Rong realize how strong Enlightened Master East Sword was. According to what she knew, even if he was not at the Emperor Realm, he was definitely only a step away. No, it was likely only half a step away. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something. Qin Yu glanced at her. I know the weight of Enlightened Master East Sword's inheritance, but I have no intention of occupying it. After some thought, he said, However, if Sect Master Jiang Rong does not mind, I would like to know what is contained in Enlightened Master East Sword's inheritance. Jiang Rong nodded. No problem. Qin Yu said, Let's go. We'll talk when we get back. Outside the city gates, no one saw what had just happened, including the scene of Qinyu and Jiang Rong's arrival. This was because the small world that Qinyu had summoned had enveloped the three of them and isolated them from everything else. They returned to the Eastern Sword Sect. 327 stood up and said, "Sect Master Qin, I will wait for you outside." Qinyu raised his hand. "No need," he said to Jiang Rong. "Miss Shaoqi is one of us. You can be trusted." Jiang Rong nodded. "I naturally trust someone Sect Master Qin trusts." She stood up and bowed. "I have neglected you before. I hope Miss Shaoqi does not mind." 327 shook her head. She glanced at Qinyu with a complicated expression. She really could not understand why he treated her differently from others. Jiang Rong thought for a moment and said, "Enlightened Master East Sword's inheritance is the sword Tao that he cultivates. To put it simply, it can be summed up in one word: longevity." A strange expression appeared on her face as she said, "This sword technique is more like a special cultivation technique. It actually tries to make the sword aura flow endlessly, using the sword aura in one's body to replace one's own life force. As long as the sword aura exists, the sword cultivator will not die. There is actually such a sword art in this world." Qinyu's eyes brightened. "Longevity sword art. Longevity." And in this world, as far as Qinyu knew, the only thing that could truly be called longevity was the legendary Eternal Realm. The reason why he used the word legendary was because besides Midi and Bai Feifei, who had been cut into pieces, Qinyu had not seen any other eternal realm in this world. Enlightened Master East Sword's goal was to make the sword breath flow endlessly and the sword cultivator exist forever. If he really achieved this, could it be understood as another state of longevity or even directly becoming a species of longevity? If not for Bai Feifei, Qinyu would not have thought so. But now it was not impossible. Otherwise, given Bai Feifei's realm and vision, why would she take the risk so easily? At least it would be helpful to her. Enlightened Master East Sword, who had not even crossed the Celestial Being Gate, wanted to surpass the Emperor realm and directly reach the Longevity realm. And it was really possible. Not to mention anything else. Just this point alone was extremely powerful. Jiang Rong observed his expression and said, "Alliance Leader Qin, if you want to read the Longevity sword art, I can write it down from memory." It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted. But Qinyu only hesitated for a second before he waved his hand and said, "No need." He wanted to read it, but Qinyu was more worried that Bai Feifei would see it when he read it. After all, her left hand was currently fused with Qinyu's. They were one. "Qinyu!" An angry roar suddenly sounded in his mind. "Bai Feifei!" Qinyu's heart skipped a beat. He activated the sun and moon force fields again to block her roar, secretly rejoicing. Fortunately, he had restrained his curiosity, or the consequences would have been unimaginable. "Forget it. I'll leave early." Jiang Rong was right in front of Bai Feifei, and that was a huge temptation. Keep swaying in front of your eyes. Don't let anything happen. Qinyu rose and said, "Sect Leader Jiang Rong, I'll take my leave. Come find me if you have any problems in your cultivation." With that, he left with 327. Jiang Rong was stunned again. She did not know what was going on with Qinyu. Did he just give Enlightened Master East Sword's inheritance to her without asking for anything? She still felt like she was dreaming. She pinched herself again and again. It hurt just as much as before. Jiang Rong took a deep breath and finally smiled excitedly. She could no longer stroll around Eastern Sword City. Qinyu left with 327. She was silent for a long time and finally could not hold it in. "Sect Leader Qin, there are some things I shouldn't know, such as the longevity sword art. There is actually such a unique way of cultivating the sword in this world. If word got out, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. It was impossible for him not to think of it." Qinyu glanced at her. "Miss Seven, Since you want to cultivate by my side in the future, I will try to believe you. Of course. I also hope that you won't tell this to anyone else, including the patriarch. Is that all right? 327 hesitated. She wanted to refuse because if the longevity sword art was obtained by the clan, it would definitely be very beneficial. But for some reason, meeting Qin Yu's eyes, she nodded. All right, I won't say anything. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. Thank you, Miss Seven. You see, I trust you and you repay me. This is a good start to our relationship. 327 said. Sect leader Qin, do you really not want the longevity sword art? Qin Yu nodded. If I say I don't want it, that would be a lie. After all, there is a possibility that it involves something that has a long life. But people cannot be too greedy. If they want everything, they will end up with nothing, and their fates will not be too good. These words caused complex emotions to appear in 327's heart. A long, long time ago, that clan had been one of the 4 great clans of the Central Desolate, and they had even become the true spirit of destiny in the world. If it weren't for their greed to obtain a higher status and become the master of one of the 9 regions of the Great Desolate, they wouldn't have fallen to their current situation. They weren't human, they weren't ghosts. To put it nicely, they were immortal and indestructible. But this sort of strange state was viewed by the outside world as a curse. This was the consequence of being greedy. Qin Yu glanced at her and said, Miss Seven, let's go back. 327 silently nodded. Whoosh! A sword shadow shot into the skies. This time, Qin Yu didn't conceal his aura. He crossed over Swallow Mountain, drawing the attention and awe of sword cultivators from all over. After returning to the Heaven-Splitting Sword Sect, the first thing Qin Yu did was find Hu Jiming and curse him until he was sweating profusely. Let's forget about the Eastern Sword Sect. But keep your eyes open in the future. If something like this happens again, my sect won't forgive you so easily. The next day, new orders were issued. Zhang Sheshan and Tai Lin were promoted by Qin Yu to be jointly responsible for the affairs of the Heaven-Splitting Sword Sect. These 2 people's cultivations were a bit lacking, especially the old sword cultivator Tai Lin. In Swallow Mountain, his cultivation wasn't worth mentioning at all. But no one dared to disobey Qin Yu's orders. They accepted their fate and confirmed it. There was no need to mention trivial matters. Sword Peak Mystic Realm. Niu Daodu was living a happy life. For some unknown reason, the monkeys here especially liked her and were incomparably close to her. But after Qin Yu arrived, they no longer dared to approach her. They peeked out from afar. Big brother Qin, they seem to be afraid of you. Qin Yu shook his head. The monkeys are afraid of others. For instance, Little Meat. Or, for instance, by Fei Fei, who was gnashing her teeth in hatred and waiting for a chance to retaliate against Qin Yu. After learning the secret of the longevity sword art, Qin Yu understood why Bai Fei Fei wanted to obtain Sage Dongjian's inheritance. Presumably, it would be helpful for her to recover her strength. And this also made Qin Yu rejoice in his decision to not give her any chance. Qin Yu sat down and looked at Niu Daodu. He hesitated for a moment and said, Daodu, there are some things I need to make clear to you. I already have someone I love. Although there are some problems now, I believe that one day I will definitely find her. So I can't have other thoughts. I hope you can understand. Niu Daodu fell silent and her smile disappeared. Qin Yu waited for a moment and was about to continue speaking when she suddenly said, So I was rejected before I even spoke. This question was not easy to answer. So Qin Yu decided to remain silent. Niu Daodu looked up and stared at Qin Yu. Is there really no chance at all? Qin Yu shook his head decisively. Alas, this world is too unfair. It's too late for me to meet you. Niu Daodu wailed and lay on the rock. Qin Yu was relieved. He could see that Niu Daodu was indeed sad, but she didn't hide it in her heart. This was actually a good thing. If she really acted as if she didn't care, then Qin Yu would worry that she would take things too hard. Nyo Daodu was listless. After a long period of silence, she said, "Big Brother Qin, can you tell me about that woman that I envy so much?" Qin nodded. "All right." After a moment, Nyo Daodu's eyes widened. She looked at Qin. She raised 3 fingers and then put them down, a blank look on her face. Qin revealed an awkward expression. He nodded. "But from what I can see, they are the same person. It's just that the situation is a bit complicated." Nyo Daodu's face suddenly filled with suspicion. "Big Brother Qin, could it be that you think I'm young and naive, so you're deliberately using this to deceive me?" Qin quickly waved his hand. "Absolutely not. I can swear on it." Nyo Daodu moved closer, an expectant look on her face. "Then take a good look. Maybe I'm the same person as them?" Qin rubbed his face. Some of the sadness and gloominess in his heart completely vanished. "Daodu, don't joke around." Nyo Daodu stuck out her tongue. "I know. I was just casually saying it. Look at how scared you are." She lifted a hand and patted Qin. "I'm the type of person that likes dedicated people. Qin, you clearly don't qualify, even though you've found a good excuse for yourself. So, I, Nyo Daodu, officially declare that starting from today, I no longer like you. You can rest assured." Qin lips twitched. He cupped his hands together. "Thank you, Miss Daodu. You no longer like me." Nyo Daodu punched him. "How boring." She turned around. "Speak. What do you need me to cooperate with?" Qin's eyes widened. "Humph, humph. Don't think that I'm stupid. Sometimes I just don't want to think too much. Qin, are you going to tell me or not? If you don't, I won't listen." Qin quickly said, "There is something that I need your help with, Daodu." He immediately explained the plans he had discussed with the imperial scholar and Nyo Dingtian, as well as the areas where he needed her cooperation. "I agree." Nyo Daodu waved her hand without looking back. "Hurry up and leave. Those monkeys don't even dare to come and play with me." Qin glanced at Nyo Daodu, an apologetic look in his eyes. He nodded and said, "All right, then I'll leave first." Shua, he directly left. Which young girl didn't have a bad spring? After being knocked awake by someone, how could she not feel sad about a dream in her heart? Qin could pretend that he didn't know, but he knew in his heart that he owed Nyo Daodu another favor. He had to return it. Chapter 1762. 3 days later, a roar broke the tranquility of Yen Ran Mountain, which was shrouded in the morning light. "Qin, get out here." The roar shook the mountains. Countless sword cultivators were jolted awake. They raised their heads abruptly and revealed shocked expressions. They couldn't imagine who dared to provoke the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect in public, courting death. But very quickly, the sword cultivators did not think so. An extremely terrifying pressure suddenly descended. Every living being on Yenran Mountain sensed the terrifying aura that made their hearts tremble. This overwhelming aura, a true emperor. Soon the news was confirmed. The one who came to Yen Ran Mountain today was the #1 rogue cultivator, Nyo Dingtian. Countless sword cultivators looked at the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect with worry. After so many years, the sword cultivators who had been trapped under the threshold of the immortal realm finally saw the hope of the great Tao. They couldn't let this hope be destroyed. After all, this was Nyo Dingtian. It was said that when Mount Tianluo arrived, 2 true emperors had joined hands and attacked Sky Bull City. But in the end, Nyo Dingtian still won against the 2 of them and forced them to retreat. It was very likely that he had reached the supreme emperor realm. Sect leader Qin was the only emperor realm sword cultivator in the world, and he was said to be strong enough to fight a true emperor. But no one had seen him fight against an emperor realm cultivator. Moreover, Nyo Dingtian was suspected to be a supreme emperor realm cultivator. The protective array of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect was broken by a punch. Nyo Dingtian's face was dark and his aura was boiling. His eyes were extremely cold. "Qin Yu, come out." Swish! A sword shadow flashed, and Qin Yu appeared in the air with an ugly face. "Senior Niu, what's the meaning of this?" Niu Ding Tian gritted his teeth. "Qin Yu, hand over Niu Daodu, or I'll tear your heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect apart today." Qin Yu frowned. "Senior Niu, when you first came, I told you that Niu Daodu wasn't here." He was interrupted before he could finish. "Qin Yu, since I've returned today, I naturally have evidence to confirm that Niu Daodu is hiding in the heaven-splitting sword sect. This old man will give you one last chance. Hand over Niu Daodu and promise never to approach her again. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Niu Dingtian was imposing. Qin Yu sneered. "Senior Ox, don't go too far." Bang! On the opposite side, Niu Dingtian punched. Hum! A monstrous sword cry suddenly rang out. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, the two sides collided, and terrifying energy fluctuations instantly burst out. "If you don't hand him over, this old man will beat you until you do. Old man, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Come, let's go fight in the clouds." Whoosh! The sword shadow soared into the sky. Niu Dingtian sneered. "You think I'm afraid of you?" Every step he took caused the space around him to collapse. After a few steps, the entire sky was already in tatters. Rumble! Soon, the shockwaves from the battle of true monarchs exploded like 100,000 claps of thunder in the sky above Swallow Ran Mountain. Even from a great distance, the terrifying aura still made the hearts of the sword cultivators below tremble. The heaven-splitting sword sect was in an uproar. Hu Jiming and the other sword sect cultivators had never imagined that disaster would suddenly come from the heavens. If something really happened to the sect master, then it would be troublesome. They had only been in glory for a few days, so how did things turn out like this? 327 looked up at the skies where the true monarchs were fighting. She frowned, and in her eyes there was a trace of worry that even she herself hadn't noticed. Taking a deep breath, she flipped her hand without hesitation and took out a treasure to send a message back to the clan. Qin Yu was currently exalted of that clan, and his safety was related to the clan's own interests. Thus, there was nothing wrong with doing this. "Clan leader, where are you? Come quickly." In fact, before 327 sent the message, the clan leader had already noticed what was happening at Swallow Ran Mountain. When he received the message, he checked it and his eyes flashed. Sure enough, Niu Daodu was really at the heaven-splitting sword sect. That day, when he first asked Qin Yu, although Qin Yu had directly denied this matter, the clan leader hadn't easily believed him. If Niu Dingtian came knocking, then he and Qin Yu would have completely fallen out. This was a good thing for that clan. The reason was simple. That clan and Niu Dingtian already had a deep grudge and had maintained a thin layer of paper between them. The enmity between Qin Yu and Niu Dingtian was enough to ensure that Qin Yu would be on the same side as that clan. Of course, the clan leader wouldn't just watch Qin Yu suffer a great loss at Niu Dingtian's hands. But it was too early to act now. At the very least, he had to wait until Qin Yu was suppressed. Only then could he leave a mark in the clan leader's heart. Of course Qin Yu would be suppressed, even if he was an Emperor Realm sword cultivator famous for his killing power, because his opponent was Niu Dingtian. In fact, there were many people paying attention to the battle at Swallow Ran Mountain. Almost all the Emperor Realm cultivators in the world were looking over. Even they didn't know the strength of the only Emperor Realm sword cultivator in the world. Today's battle was obviously a demon-revealing mirror. If Qin Yu really had the battle strength of a true monarch as imagined, then he would have to think twice about his future actions. Otherwise, it would be a completely different attitude. Reality had proven that Emperor Realm sword cultivators were indeed strong. Qin Yu of the Heaven-Splitting Sword Sect was able to fight against Niu Dingtian as a half-emperor. Both sides had been fighting for a while, and the situation didn't look too bad. At least the whistling and exploding sword aura that pierced through the sky was enough to attract the attention of the true monarchs in the world. Of course, even so, Qin Yu was inevitably falling into a disadvantageous position. Niu Dingtian was suspected to be a supreme Emperor realm expert. Heavens, in this great battle, he still displayed his incomparably valiant battle prowess. Boom! The sword shadow was sent flying with a loud bang. Niu Dingtian's roar echoed between heaven and earth. So what if you're an Emperor realm sword cultivator? You're not a true monarch, so you're no match for me. Hand him over to me. Otherwise, this old man will kill you today. The sword shadow that was sent flying suddenly burst out with extremely dazzling sword light. Old fool, I'll kill you with my own hands when I break through to the true monarch realm. His roar was filled with killing intent. The true monarchs who were watching the battle subconsciously shuddered. This was because they suddenly discovered that it wasn't impossible for Qin Yu to say these words in anger. Although a half-emperor was also in the emperor realm, there was a huge gap between them and a true monarch. They couldn't say that they were in the sky or on the ground, but they were on a completely different level in terms of absolute strength. If Qin Yu really broke through to the true monarch realm, with the terrifying killing power of a sword cultivator, he might be able to fight with a true monarch. Since even Niu Dingtian could be killed, killing them was naturally not a problem. Thinking of this, their hearts were filled with fear. It seemed that killing Qin Yu today was not a bad result. In this world, one Qin Emperor was enough. No one hoped that there would be someone else who could threaten their lives, even if it was just a possibility. Above the clouds, Niu Dingtian sneered. Do you think I'll give you this chance? Qin Yu, today is the day you die. Far away, in a secret grotto heaven. Swish, the clan leader stood up and took a step forward. It was about time. If they continued to wait, Qin Yu would really be seriously injured, and that would be troublesome. If someone hit them while they were down, the clan would also be in dire straits. A true monarch was one with heaven and earth. He could perceive the world with a thought, and he could reach anywhere in the universe with a single step. Boom! Above Tianluo Mountain, the space suddenly shook and shattered. The clan leader charged into the battlefield. Niu Dingtian! He shouted and punched out. Boom! With a deafening sound, all the aftershocks of the battle were swept away in an instant. Only Niu Dingtian and the clan leader could be seen. Both of them were shaking with an aura that could destroy the world. Qin Yu of the Heaven-Splitting Swordsmanship sect was now serving the clan, so it was not surprising that the clan leader intervened. But the shocking thing was that the clan leader's power was simply terrifying. He was not at a disadvantage when facing Niu Dingtian head-on, which was quite frightening. Another supreme emperor realm expert? The true emperors who were watching the battle in secret felt their hearts constrict violently, and their eyes were filled with anger. Niu Dingtian had hidden his strength, and the clan leader had also hidden his strength so deeply. Two cunning bastards. Swish! A sword shadow flashed, and Qin Yu appeared next to the clan leader, his face dark. I thought that the clan leader would like to watch a little longer. His tone was discontented. The clan leader said, I was in seclusion just now, so my senses were a little slow. Qin Yu snorted, and didn't say anything else. He gritted his teeth and said, Niu Dingtian, this old man seems to be crazy. He actually came to my sect to ask for Niu Dingtian. Clan leader, you came just in time. Today, you and I will join hands and kill this old man. Kill me? Niu Dingtian laughed, and his voice shook the sky. Clan leader, I didn't expect that you would be willing to expose your cultivation today. But even so, I can still come and go as I please. He took a step forward, and his eyes were cold. Qin Yu, the clan leader can protect you for a while, but not forever. Hand over Niu Daodu, and this matter will be over. Otherwise, I will let you know what despair is. Qin Yu shouted angrily, Old man, she is not here. Niu Dingtian sneered. Clan leader, are you sure you want to fight with me today? The clan leader frowned and said, "Nyo Dingtian, you can go now." Humph! Nyo Dingtian turned and took a step forward, instantly disappearing. "Chinyu, as long as you don't hand over Nyo Daodu, I will guard Yanren Mountain for another day. You better be a coward and never come out." His cold laughter resounded through the world. Qin Yu lifted his hand and slashed out with his sword. "Old man." His anger was monstrous. Rumble, rumble. A terrifying sword aura tore through the sky. The clan leader said, "Sect leader, there is no need to be angry. Let's go down and talk." Qin Yu took a deep breath and nodded. Shua! The two figures directly returned to heaven, splitting sword sect. Hu Jiming and the others let out a sigh of relief. They didn't dare to come over, and each left with a heavy heart. It was simple. Although everything was fine today, Nyo Dingtian's words were clear. This matter wasn't over yet. 327 walked over and bowed respectfully. "Clan leader." The clan leader nodded. "You can leave first. I have something to discuss with sect leader Qin." 327 nodded and turned to leave, but there was a trace of complexity in her eyes. Qin Yu trusted her and didn't shy away from secrets, but the clan leader didn't have the same trust in her. It had to be said that this was a matter that made one's heart sorrowful when they thought about it. "Clan leader, please sit." Qin Yu exhaled, but his expression didn't look too good. The clan leader nodded and sat down. The first thing he said was, "Sect leader Qin, I'll get straight to the point. Is Nyo Daodu really not here?" Qin Yu hesitated. "She is." He lifted his head and looked straight at the clan leader. "But regarding Nyo Daodu, I've spoken to you before and you've agreed." The clan leader frowned. He thought for a moment and said, "Are you sure you want her?" Qin Yu was resolute. "There is no room for discussion. I'm not afraid to tell the clan leader that I agreed to be a consecrate of that clan in hopes that I can borrow the clan leader's strength to fulfill my wish. If the clan leader advises me to give up on Nyo Daodu today, then the agreement between my sect and that clan will be nullified." This was a direct showdown. Although it was intimidating, it was too crude for an Emperor Realm expert. But it was also obvious that Qin Yu was anxious. The clan leader thought for a moment and said, slowly, "Don't worry, sect leader Qin. Rest assured, sect leader Qin. I have no such intentions. But since you insist on getting Nyo Daodu, Nyo Dingtian will not give up. You know how much he values Nyo Daodu. He even gave her the great Path Golden armor to protect herself in Mount Tianluo." Qin Yu's expression became even more unsightly. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'll definitely kill this old bastard in the future." He took a deep breath. "Do you have any ideas, clan leader?" The clan leader shook his head. "Nyo Dingtian is too powerful. Even I don't have the slightest confidence in dealing with him. This is indeed difficult." This sentence was not false. With Nyo Dingtian's strength, he could attack at any time unless the clan leader stayed here all the time if he really wanted to hide outside Mount Tianluo. In that case, even if Qin Yu could escape, the heaven-splitting sword sect would be finished, and the Swordsman Alliance on Mount Yanran would only exist in name. A forced alliance leader who didn't dare to show his face would have no prestige at all. Qin Yu's expression flickered as he fell into deep thought. A sharp light flashed in the patriarch's eyes. He was well aware of the secrets on Qin Yu's body. Back in the void boundary, spiritual master Qingtian's death and true sovereign Chongji's counterattack were the best evidence. Thus, the clan leader hoped that he would be able to clearly see what sort of methods Qin Yu was hiding through this incident. After a brief silence, Qin Yu took a deep breath and said through gritted teeth, "Clan leader, I'll try to break through to the Emperor realm. Once I succeed, our current predicament will be easily solved." The clan leader's expression changed slightly. "Are you serious, sect leader Qin?" He had never expected to get such an answer. Break through to the true sovereign realm. Qin Yu had only broken through to the half-step emperor realm after obtaining the great path of Mount Tianluo. How long had it been? He actually dared to say such words. The ignorant are fearless? No, with Qin Yu's cultivation and realm, there was no way he didn't know how difficult it was to break through to the true sovereign realm. Moreover, he was a sword cultivator. The difficulty of breaking through was much higher than other cultivators. Qin Yu nodded. Of course I'm serious. He revealed a firm expression and said in a low voice, although it's a bit difficult, I have some confidence in succeeding. However, I need that clan's help. The clan leader didn't bat an eyelid. Sect leader, please speak. Qin Yu said, I need to borrow the destiny of that clan to increase the chances of success. Space suddenly fell silent. Good luck was really something that was hard to explain. But in front of that clan, this was controllable. As the current spirits of destiny between the heavens and earth, they could indeed change a person's destiny. But to interfere in breaking through to the true sovereign realm required destiny. This wasn't something that could be solved with a jade pendant. The clan leader frowned. He slowly said, I will need to consider this matter. He looked straight at Qin Yu. Sect leader Qin should also know that the destiny of the heavens and earth is related to the foundation of my clan. It cannot be easily used. Qin Yu's heart skipped a beat. His intuition told him that although the clan leader said he would consider this matter, he had already refused. But in reality, he had already refused. Moreover, his refusal was very thorough, leaving no room for negotiation. His plan to borrow the destiny of that clan to increase his chances of breaking through had started badly. His thoughts raced. Qin Yu nodded. I can understand the patriarch's difficulties. He clenched his teeth. If the patriarch agrees to this matter, I can guarantee that I will give that clan a great lucky chance. The clan leader pondered silently. Qin Yu lowered his voice. Long life seed, eternal realm. Shua, the clan leader fiercely looked up. He stubbornly stared at Qin Yu. Sect leader Qin, is this true? Qin Yu said, This matter is my sect's greatest secret. I ask the patriarch to keep it a secret. He took a deep breath. Since I've said it, I'm not afraid of letting the patriarch know that the reason sage Sky High joined forces with true sovereign Chengji to hunt me down was because of this. Everything became clear. The clan leader finally understood this matter. His doubts vanished, and a sharp light rose in his eyes. At this moment, he had an impulse to kill Qin Yu. Long life seed, eternal realm, this was a boundary he had dreamed of for countless years. As long as he could make a breakthrough, the current predicament of that clan wouldn't be worth mentioning. In fact, he could even leap up and replace the great Qin Empire as the ruler of this world. But in the end, the clan leader suppressed this impulse in his heart. He said in a low voice, If sect leader Qin can take out something that is enough to move me, I can agree to this matter. Everything in the world had its own value. As long as there were enough benefits, anything could be traded. The destiny of the world was indeed the foundation of that clan. But if it was related to the secrets of the long life seed, then it could also be taken out. Qin Yu said, My sect needs some time. The clan leader said, No problem. I can wait. I will be guarding Swallow Mountain during this period of time. Niu Dingtian won't have a chance to act. Thank you, Patriarch. Qin Yu stood up. At this time, the clan leader suddenly said, I would like to see Niu Daodu. Qin Yu glanced at him. Sure. He flicked his sleeves, and the two of them appeared in the mystic realm of the Sword Peak. The clan leader nodded. I ask sect leader Qin to not blame me. This is an important matter, and I must be careful. Qin Yu had no expression. I can understand. Is it okay now? Yes. Shua, the two of them left. Patriarch, please do as you wish. I will go and prepare first. Qin Yu turned and left. Looking at his back, the clan leader's eyes were cloudy and uncertain. He turned and stepped out, vanishing from sight. 327 hurriedly stood up and bowed. Greetings, Patriarch. The clan leader waved his hand. 327, tell me everything that happened while you were at Chinyu's side. Do not leave out a single detail. 327 respectfully nodded. And on the other side, Chinyu was already preparing, and his so-called preparation was actually very simple. Cough. Big Sister Feifei, are you awake yet? This little brother has a matter that I urgently need your help with. She had just played a trick on her, and now she had turned around and faced this situation. This was truly fate playing with people. Chapter 1763. Bai Feifei didn't move. Chinyu rubbed his face and said, I know. Regarding the matter at Eastern Sword City, I was indeed in the wrong. Calm down. Still no movement. Chinyu's lips twitched. He thought for a moment. Sister Feifei, this is actually a win-win situation for both of us. I want to scheme against that clan and steal their destiny. I need their trust, and you are suppressed in a different place. Why don't you take this chance to retrieve more body parts? After a while, Chinyu stood up and sighed. Forget it. Since Sister Feifei isn't interested, I can only think of another way. Humph. Bai Feifei snorted angrily. Chinyu, you bastard. You did such a thing, and you want me to help you? Dream on. You have such a big face. As long as she was willing to speak, it was fine. As for what she said, that wasn't important. Chinyu coughed. Sister Feifei, I've already apologized. Please be magnanimous and don't bother about it. This is a good thing for both of us. How about it? Let's join hands and take what we need. Bai Feifei sneered. How can I trust you? Chinyu said, I don't trust you either. Then, what the hell are you talking about? I still have to talk about it. Chinyu rubbed his chin. You see, the two of us are directly expressing our attitudes. This is a very good way to cooperate. It's better than feigning civility and scheming. If we were to say everything at the start, perhaps we could think of a way to satisfy both sides. Bai Feifei said, Swear on the great Tao that you won't scheme against me again. Chinyu readily agreed. No problem. But Sister Feifei, you have to give me a sense of security too, right? He continued, Tell me what you should do. Don't say something like swearing on the great Tao again. Bai Feifei gave a muffled snort. She thought for a moment and said, I can sign a contract with you for 30 years. Before that, I won't do anything to you. As for after 30 years, haha, I don't think you care anymore, right? Chinyu clapped. Good. But this contract better not have any problems. This is our first open cooperation. Let's be sincere and have fewer tricks. Bai Feifei said, Don't worry. A moment later, the little blue lamp's response finally arrived. The little blue lamp's response was brief and direct. It pointed out two small problems in the contract. Ahem, Sister Feifei, there's nothing wrong with the contract as a whole. Let's make some small changes, and we'll be able to sign it immediately. After a while, the contract was completed. Bai Feifei said, Little Chin Chin, I couldn't tell, but you're pretty good. I've already told you the location, so go do what you need to do. As long as everything goes smoothly this time around, Big Sister will definitely not mind giving you a small advantage. His words were casual, but his heart was solemn. With Chinyu's vision and cultivation, it was impossible for him to sense any problems with the contract she made. As expected, there was something wrong with this kid. However, when she thought about it, she felt that it was normal. If he was really just an ordinary brat, how could little Meaty possibly take a fancy to him? Cooperating with Chinyu also seemed like a good choice. If she could really get her other body parts back, she would be able to come back to life. At that time, there would be nothing to be afraid of. Chinyu smiled and nodded. Sister Feifei, don't worry. We'll be able to leave soon. But you still have to give me a token. After all, words are no guarantee. Here you go. Take it. Chinyu stuffily coughed. His left hand instantly split apart. A blood-red tentacle drilled out and broke off on its own. In the next moment, this tentacle rapidly disintegrated and reformed, turning into a common-looking gray stone. But Qin Yu could clearly feel a suppressive aura from this stone. It was powerful to the extreme, representing an even higher level of strength. The aura of the eternal realm. His left hand returned to normal. Qin Yu cursed this woman for holding a grudge. He reached out and took the stone in his hand. His eyes flashed with a sharp light. With this stone in hand, he wasn't afraid that the patriarch wouldn't take the bait. Qin Yu stepped forwards. In the next moment, he appeared where 327 was living. Patriarch, Shua. The patriarch appeared, his eyes bright. He looked at Qin Yu without speaking. Seeing Qin Yu nod, his eyes exploded with a sharp light. He said in a low voice, "As long as I can confirm that what Sovereign Qin says is true, I will definitely help." Qin Yu flipped his hand, and the stone appeared in front of him. The patriarch's breathing instantly became heavy. He stubbornly stared at the stone in front of him. This aura, there was no mistake, it was indeed the eternal realm. Others might not be able to be so sure, but he had once seen a true eternal realm existence. Although the two auras were completely different, there was no way he could be wrong about the mental suppression. Qin Yu put away the stone. The patriarch stepped forwards, a terrifying aura surging around him. Luckily, he immediately reacted. He took a deep breath and restrained his aura. "My apologies, I forgot myself." Qin Yu said, "It's fine, I can understand. Does the patriarch believe me now?" The clan chief nodded. "That stone does indeed contain the aura of a longevity seed. Sect Master Qin, you can now tell us about the existence of that existence." Qin Yu said, "This eternal realm existence, because of some accident, was defeated and disintegrated. His body is suppressed in different places, and I just happen to know of one of those places." The patriarch suddenly said, "Sword prison." Qin Yu was secretly startled. These old farts, each one of them was as cunning as a fox. On the surface, he only furrowed his eyebrows and said, "That's right. The sword prison beneath Swallow Mountain is indeed one of the sealing points." This was a disguised acknowledgement that he had already obtained a part of the longevity seed's body. The patriarch narrowed his eyes. "How can I believe that this isn't a trap aimed at that clan?" He looked at Qin Yu, his eyes sharp. Qin Yu sneered. "Patriarch, you think too highly of me. Do you think that if that longevity seed still had its own consciousness, I could have succeeded? Or does Patriarch believe that my sect has the qualifications to make a transaction with a longevity seed?" The Patriarch didn't look away. He looked at Qin Yu for several breaths of time and said, "You are saying that this longevity seed has lost its consciousness?" Qin Yu said, "That seems to be the case." "Impossible." The Patriarch said in a low voice, "An eternal realm existence is undying and indestructible. They coexist with the world and cannot be killed. Even if they are dismembered or suppressed, their consciousness will still exist." Qin Yu hesitated. The Patriarch said, "I must obtain a convincing answer. Otherwise, I cannot take this risk." Qin Yu grit his teeth. "I wonder if Patriarch has heard of heavenly punishment?" "Heavenly punishment?" The Patriarch frowned. He glanced at Qin Yu and said, "I need to confirm this matter." Qin Yu said, "Patriarch, please go ahead." An hour later, the Patriarch returned. He tried his best to maintain his calm, but his face was still slightly red. The light in his eyes was a clear indication of the excitement in his heart. It was done. "Sect Master Qin, I promise you that as long as you can find the location of the seal, I will agree to your request and lend you the fortune of the world to help you break through to the Emperor realm." Qin Yu nodded. "Of course, if I want to break through to the Emperor realm, I will need the help of the Eternal Realm seal. Therefore, I agree with the Patriarch on this matter." The clan chief revealed a smile. "Very good. You and I both take what we need. I feel that having Clan Master Qin as our exalted is the right thing to do. Qin Yu nodded. Of course. When do we leave? Not now. Niu Dingtian is still out there. Qin Yu's face darkened. The clan leader frowned and said, Leave this matter to me. 2 days later, another battle between the Emperor Realm experts broke out above the clouds of Swallow Mountain. But this time the protagonists were the Patriarch and Niu Dingtian. The Patriarch exploded with extraordinary strength and actually gained the upper hand in the battle. And as this great battle was going on, Qin Yu had already quietly left with 327. Just you wait. I will not let this matter rest. Niu Dingtian's angry roar resounded between heaven and earth. If it was before, the Patriarch would have been afraid of Niu Dingtian's threat. But now, the secret of the Eternal Realm was right in front of him. As long as he could get his hands on it, he would have the chance to break through to the next level. Niu Dingtian was nothing in the time zone. This battle shook the world. It also let all the Emperor Realm experts know that Niu Dingtian was still a little lacking. The Patriarch was the true Emperor Realm expert. What a sly old fox! The last time he fought with Niu Dingtian, he had hidden a trick up his sleeve. A trace of hesitation appeared on 327's face. Sect leader Qin, where are we going now? Although she didn't know the plan between Qin Yu and the Patriarch, there was no doubt that the Patriarch had fought with Niu Dingtian to give Qin Yu a chance to leave quietly. The Patriarch had even exposed his true realm, which he had hidden for many years, to cause such a huge commotion. There must be something important involved. How could she participate in such an important matter? 327 couldn't understand why Qin Yu still wanted to take her with him. Qin Yu said, Miss Xiaoqi, don't worry. I'm taking you with me because there is a connection between you and me due to the great Tao of Mount Skyfall. With you by my side, I can use my full strength. He turned around and smiled. Don't worry, I will guarantee your safety. Looking at Qin Yu's smile, 327 suddenly felt at ease. She hesitated for a moment and then nodded, not saying anything more. And now, the two of them were high in the clouds. Below them was a boundless earth that stretched as far as the eye could see. Countless great cities towered above the earth, brightly lit in the night. From the highest heavens, they looked like beautiful lanterns. Strong winds howled, but they couldn't touch the clouds at all. They were isolated by an invisible sword aura. Sitting beside Qin Yu, 327 looked at the earth and the sea of clouds. She suddenly felt incomparably relaxed from the inside out. But this relaxed feeling didn't last for too long. Shua, the clan leader, suddenly appeared on the clouds. His gaze swept across and landed on 327. She was startled. She quickly stood up and bowed. Patriarch! The Patriarch nodded. He looked at Qin Yu. Sect leader Qin, we can leave now. Chapter 1764. Qin Yu understood the meaning behind his words. He directly said, Our goal is the monster race's ancestral land. The Patriarch frowned. The monster race's ancestral land. A thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. Let's go there first. Qin Yu nodded. I'll have to trouble you, Patriarch. The Patriarch flicked his sleeves, and an invisible strength wrapped around the three of them. Then they stepped out and vanished above the clouds. But this time, in order to avoid being discovered by the monster race, the three of them emerged from the spatial fluctuations when they were still some distance away. In front of them was an incomparably massive basin. Its scope was vast, even greater than Swallow Mountain. Fog filled the air, concealing everything within. It was impossible to see what was hidden beneath the fog. The Patriarch turned and looked at Qin Yu. He took a step forward and closed his eyes. After several breaths of time, he lifted a hand and pointed. It's in the fog. The Patriarch sucked in a deep breath. So it's like this. Then it's a bit troublesome. He frowned, deep in thought. Qin Yu said, The monster race's ancestral land isn't something that can be easily entered. Moreover, this matter cannot be carried out quietly. Just think of Sword Prison. How could the seal that suppressed the long-lived species be ordinary? If one wanted to break through and obtain the remnant sealed body, it would inevitably cause a great commotion. The patriarch said, "I must ask for a helper." He looked at Chinyu. "But even so, we need to let him know of this matter." Chinyu hesitated. He said, "Patriarch, can you guarantee that this person is reliable?" The patriarch said, "It shouldn't be a problem. Moreover, what's more important is that we have no other methods. We can only try." "All right then." Seeing Chinyu agree, the patriarch took out a blue stone made from an unknown material. He lifted his hand and pointed it. Pa! The blue stone instantly exploded into powder. "All right, we'll wait here for a moment." Moments later, not too far away from the three of them, space quietly surged and a figure walked out. He wore black robes, and as he walked, there was the sound of flowing water. Black ripples circled around his body, tumbling and tumbling with the sound of water. "Patriarch, why did you call this saint here?" "Ancient remnant." With just a glance, Chinyu was able to determine the other party's identity. The patriarch of the clan cupped his hands. "Lord of Dongting, this is the new minister of offerings of our clan, Chinyu, the lord of heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect. I invited you here today because I have an important matter to discuss with you." "Chinyu?" The Dongting lord's gaze landed on Chinyu, the only emperor realm sword cultivator in the world. What a great reputation. There was a hint of mockery in his tone. Chinyu frowns and takes a step forward. "It's the first time for me to hear the name of the Lord of Dongting." "Humph. Junior, when I dominated the world, where were you?" Under the black robe, the eyes of the Lord of Dongting were cold. Chinyu lifted his hand and the mountain and river sword appeared. "If you feel that I don't have the qualifications to stand here, then feel free to fight," the patriarch said in a low voice. "All right, it's the first time the two of you have met. There's no need to be so hostile." He looks at the Lord of Dongting. "If you knew why I called you here, you wouldn't do this kind of thing again." The Lord of Dongting sneered. "Patriarch, tell me about it." The patriarch said, "In the ancestral land of the monster clan, there's a part of the body of an eternal realm existence sealed." Swish the space suddenly became quiet. The Lord of Dongting breathed heavily in an instant. "Patriarch, some words can't be said casually. In the whole world, no one can understand the monster clan better than the holy clan." The patriarch said, "If I didn't have the confidence, do you think I would call you here?" And this matter was first discovered by Sect Master Qin, and he told this matter to me. The Lord of Dongting looked at Chinyu and then at the patriarch. "I have to admit that I do believe it a little. The body of the eternal realm is sealed. Hee, it seems that you too want me to open the way for you." "Yes." The patriarch said, "If this matter is successful, Lord Qin will have his own needs. As for the sealed eternal realm body, I am willing to share it with the Lord of Dongting." The Lord of Dongting was silent. Chinyu said, "The ancestral land of the monster clan is very big, but only I know where the seal is." The Lord of Dongting's eyes flashed. He stared at Chinyu and licked his lips. "Lord Qin, don't you think that your words are easy to get yourself into trouble?" Chinyu said lightly, "With the sword in hand, I have nothing to fear. If the Lord of Dongting wants to have a try, you can do it at any time." On Yanran Mountain, Chinyu of the heaven-opening swordsmanship sect had been fighting Neo Dingtian for a long time. Although he was suppressed, the horrible sword breath that split the sky had shown his strength to the world. He could fight a true Emperor Realm expert. 327 clenched her fists and looked nervous. At this moment, the Lord of Dongting suddenly looked at her. "Girl, you are from that clan, right? Why are you so nervous?" "I have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Even if I fight you, I won't hurt you. Being shrouded by his eyes, it was like being bitten by a barbed tongue. 327 subconsciously moved closer to Chinyu. Ha ha ha. Interesting, you little girl. You didn't ask your patriarch for help, but actually looked for this sword cultivator. The Lord of Dongting laughed and looked at the patriarch. He pointed out, Patriarch, a grown girl can't be kept at home. You are starting to help outsiders. The patriarch looked calm. Lord Qin is my clan's exalted, so he is naturally one of us. 327, looking for him for help is normal. There was a hint of coldness in his tone. As for you, are you willing to cooperate? I don't have time to waste with you. The Lord of Dongting coldly snorted. Of course, this saint is willing to cooperate. After all, it is the broken body of an eternal realm expert. How can I miss it? But how can this saint believe that the two of you won't join forces to deal with me? After all, Patriarch, you said that you are a family. The Patriarch said, you and I each take an oath on the great Tao and establish a contract. Good. The Lord of Dongting clapped his hands. The Patriarch looked at Chinyu. Chinyu was expressionless. He said, I have no objections. Soon, the three of them took their oaths. Hiding behind Chinyu, 327 lowered her head. Her face paled. She stubbornly bit her lips, not allowing herself to show any signs of abnormality. But she didn't notice that the Patriarch's eyes swept over her body. Although he seemed calm, he was actually icy cold. Lord of Dongting, let's go. The Patriarch said. Okay. Shua. The Lord of Dongting was the first to move. The clan leader followed suit. Chinyu turned around and looked at 327. Little Seven, are you all right? 327 shook her head. Then let's go too. He reached out and grabbed 327. Chinyu stepped forwards, his sword shadows catching up to the two. And at this time, in the skies above the basin, fog suddenly surged. The monster race's ancestral land had already discovered the intruders. Rumble, rumble, rumble. With a loud sound, several giant shadows flapped their wings as they came howling over. Halt! This is the monster race's ancestral land. No one is allowed to enter without permission. Hurry and leave, otherwise you will have to bear the consequences. Angry shouts echoed out one after another. In other words, the monster race had already declined. If someone dared to break into their ancestral land when their ancestors were rich, they would have been killed on the spot. There was no need to say anything at all. The Lord of Dongting, who was walking at the front, coldly snorted. Are you all blind? The one who can't see is me. Boom! A powerful aura instantly broke out from his body. On the opposite side, several monsters that were flying over wailed at the same time. Their flapping wings froze, and they fell down one after another. The Lord of Dongting raised his hand and grabbed forward. A terrifying giant hand appeared out of thin air, grabbing a monster and directly stuffing it into his mouth. Holy race! The remaining monsters screamed in horror. Without hesitation, they turned around and fled. This was the natural suppression that the ancient people had on the monster race. It came from their bloodline. A long time ago, when the ancient people ruled the world, the monster race was subdued by them and became their lackeys. Bah! A bunch of trash. The taste is getting worse. The Lord of Dongting spat out a mouthful of blood. He threw away the corpse and strode into the depths of the fog. God Qing, I am here. Why don't you come out and greet me? The rolling sound waves spread out in the fog. Shua! Soon, the fog in front of them disappeared instantly. A woman appeared in front of them. She had blue hair and blue clothes. She looked like an immortal. She looked at the Lord of Dongting with cold eyes. Lord of Dongting, according to the agreement between our clans, the ancestral land of the monster race is a place that you can't enter. The Lord of Dongting glanced at her greedily and said with a low smile, It's time to abolish the old tradition. God Qing, I haven't seen you for many years. You're still so beautiful. Why don't you reconsider the proposal that I gave you before? How about being my wife? You and I can cultivate together and be a pair of immortal companions. It will benefit our cultivation. It's really 100 advantages without any disadvantages. God Qing's eyes were colder. If today the Lord of Dongting came here just to talk about this, then please go back. The Lord of Dongting sneered. God Qing, although you are also a true emperor, it is not difficult for me to suppress you. God Qing raised his hand. The blue light surged all over the sky like a boundless sea of clouds. Lord of Dongting, you can have a try. The clan leader frowned. Lord of Dongting, don't make trouble. He took a step forward and said, Deity Qing, we are not here to harm you today. We are here to ask for the cooperation of the Beast Tribe. God Qing looked at him. Clan leader, please say it. This sentence meant that she had made a concession. She had no choice but to retreat. Because of their bloodline, the monster race was naturally restrained by the ancient people. Even though she was not afraid of the Lord of Dongting in terms of strength, if they really fought, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. And today, the Lord of Dongting was not the only one who came here. The clan leader even showed the strength of the strongest of the Emperor realm in Tianluo Mountain. And behind him, the sword cultivator who had been silent all this time had an extremely sharp aura. The one with such strength could only be the head of the heaven-splitting swordsmanship sect, the only sword cultivator in the world who could fight against a true emperor with a sword cultivation. Facing such a lineup, God Qing had to retreat. The monster race had been weak for a long time and could no longer withstand any more turmoil. The clan leader said, It's very simple. We need God Qing to open a part of the monster race's ancestral land for us to use. God Qing, don't worry. Apart from this, I promise I will not ask for anything else. As long as God Qing agrees, I will repay you later. You will definitely be satisfied. God Qing frowned. She took a deep breath. There is no need for repayment. I only hope that the clan leader will keep his word. Her eyes swept over the gloomy Lord of Dongting. The clan leader smiled. Of course.